empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Don't stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares through. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. I thought you
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GT Omega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.
Hello, good evening, and welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another night of the GT Mega Challenger Cup. It's Dave Christie here with you with all of the action. To my left-hand side is the glorious man himself, Mr. Milky Cereal, aka Yousuf Bin-Suhayl. Yousuf, great to have you back for yet another week. Thrills in plenty at Nürburgring last week.
Absolutely, and we've got to see a fantastic race. Glad to be alongside you once again, David. We're making a bit of a habit of this now, aren't we?
We really are. I've got to be honest. You know, I need somebody that is good looking to lift the stream up a little bit. And Yousuf, my goodness, my man, you're definitely that man to do that. But going back to last week, you know, Nürburgring, the whole story rests around BS plus competition. Now starting to get scary little inklings here that they're on charge of, or rather in charge of this championship, and starting to run away with things a little bit, taking the win, 3 wins out of 5 over the past 5 weeks here. We go to Bathurst, Mount Panorama tonight. It's kind of looking like it could be their way again tonight.
Absolutely, and you look at BS Plus competition, they started off the season finishing second, but their consistency has been impeccable. You could say, hey, look, they've got 5 podiums in a row. 5 podiums from 5 races. I said, that's a cool stat. But there's something more important to say. They have not finished outside of the top 2 in every single race this season. It is absolutely ludicrous. And the Yas Heat GTWR team, since that opening round, they have not been able to win. They've had a 4th, they've had 2 seconds, they've had a 3rd. But that win is elusive. And you started off this show, David, by saying We saw a lot of thrills last time round in Nürburgring. Well, we're at Bathurst, we're in Mount Panorama, and that means that we're going to be getting thrills, but more importantly, we're going to be getting the spills as well.
Oh, talking of spills, we've got Skyline. We'll come on to the track very, very shortly. Just running you down that top three from last time out at Nürburgring, then it was BS Plus competition taking the race win with Yas Heat by GTWR taking second place and Yas Heat Community in third place. This is how the standings look then. BS Plus competition ahead on 720 points. That is a good 57 points ahead of second place's Yas Heat GTWR. Jardier Community in third place with 506 points. Now, 150 points per race for the winner here, Yousuf. And given that we've now got 3 races left to go, realistically, while mathematically there could be a chance for some of those teams outside the top 3 to get in this, I can't see BS Plus right now falling off of that podium. And if that is the case, it's going to be very difficult to see who can knock them off.
Yeah, and almost mathematically speaking, if BS Plus competition keep up the form that they have, they could be in a position where they win this championship by the end of Misano, which is our 7th round of this 8-round championship, so they wouldn't even need a Silverstone point. But that would require Yas Heat by GWTR to have some poor performances, let's say, and while they haven't been at the very front, they've still been picking up seconds, they've been picking up thirds, they've been taking those podiums, so that does look unlikely at the moment. A big team to keep your eye out for in the championship as well is that Yas Heat community team, having joined the season in our 3rd round of the championship at Donington. 2 seconds, or pardon me, 2/3 and a race win. They're charging up the championship standings.
They absolutely are. They're making big, big progress. I wouldn't put it past them to see them on the podium in terms of championship at the end of the season. What is so important now for tonight is that BS Plus competition have to get a podium to maintain their momentum. Anything less than that, and that opens up the door to some dangerous prospects, especially from the likes of GTWR Yas Heat down there in that second place machine. So, and the other thing that we saw last week, Yousuf, as well, is, you know, the leaders are not immune from making mistakes. How many times at that final chicane did we see cars hopping over the curb and pretty much making unforced errors?
And that's where the story of Nürburgring happened, because we remember back 1 week ago to the Nürburgring, and it was BS Plus competition who were leading. They made the mistake over the chicane, and it gave the lead over to the Yas Heat community team. Roll forward, what was it, 10 minutes or something, and then the Yas Heat community team made the same mistake, and it gave BS Plus competition the lead again, which meant that we didn't get to see them battling for position, which meant that the Yas Heat GWTR car was never vying for that race win. But what we do know is that it is close in terms of pace, and the BS Plus competition car is running with that BMW M8, whereas the Yas Heat cars are running with the McLaren. So once we go from track to track, that dynamic could change, and it could be the Yas Heat car that find themselves in a more favourable position.
Well, talking about changing dynamics, that brings us on perfectly to the news of the number 75 Yas Heat GTWR car. They've got a super sub even, stepping in for tonight in the form of Zahir Essa, taking behind the wheel. George Boothby involved in other activities tonight. And again, just a huge thank you for all of you joining us on the live stream on Twitch tonight. We know that there's plenty other sim racing going on, as well as some rather, especially up here in Scotland, some big football goal match or something going on tonight. I've got no idea what that could be, Yousuf. I'm not the most up to date on that sort of stuff anyway, which is why I stick to 4 wheels. But here we are live on the track then, and there we go, Zahir Essa, as if by magic. That's exactly who we were talking about for Yas Heat by GTWR, and in that number 75 machine then. So 2.5 minutes left to go in free practice. Again, no real surprises to see that the BMW is doing strong in practice, but yet again, how much did we see that? The BMWs did well in practice and in qualifying, Yousuf, at Nürburgring, but in race pace, it was actually all about the Porsches.
Yeah, the Porsches did do fantastically well last time round at the Nürburgring. We'll see whether that comes to fruition once again, but we do have, I feel like we have less Porsches this time out than we did last week. Just the 2 with Valik and Voitner picking up the Porsches in that 70 and 116 cars.
Could be a thing, actually. We'll double check on that, but certainly as we watch as they hear Essa out Hell Corner up the start straight there. Look at that, our lovely pictures displayed on the screen there. Up the mountain straight, then into Griffin's Mount. And one of the things that I recently learned is that apparently I've been completely wrong. And that turn 2 is in fact, because obviously, like yourself, Yousuf, we have to rely on a lot of websites for corner names and track guides and things like that. And one of the most common misconceptions is that turn 2 is Quarry Bend, but it's actually turn 2 is Griffin's Mount. And Quarry is actually up after the cutting. So if you swap corners 2 and 4 on pretty much every single track guide that's out there, and I didn't believe that. It was a random YouTube that comment on a race that I was commentating on, and it was from someone who was in Australia, and they were like rolling their eyes for every time that a commentator got those two corners mixed up. And then I was like, I wasn't sure if they were trolling or not. Went and did my research, and sure enough, that's exactly the case. So Quarry Bend is actually up after the cutting, just before Reed Park.
Yeah, I mean, it says
There
on
we go.
Wikipedia, turn 2 Griffin's Bend, and we all know Wikipedia is never wrong.
Wikipedia is just like gospel, isn't it?
Well, I remember back when I was trying to learn the Silverstone names, and it was always Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. When I'd look at different circuit guides, it'd say that Maggots was like one corner and Beckett's was another 2, and they kept changing. And eventually, I just went and looked at it on the Silverstone website, and then realised that Chapel was just the final kink at the end of it. And Maggots and Beckett's are 2 corners each, hence why there's an S at the end of each of the corner names.
Corners that I know very, very, very well for really bad reasons, but we'll get into
no,
that
what did
later
you
on.
do?
Yeah, my first ever real life race, I spun the car around there and faced onto oncoming traffic. It was in the middle of the night, and it was a herd of angry wasps. It was like 50 C1s with their headlights on, coming flailing towards me. It was not fun times. Anyway, so back to a race tonight here at Bathurst. We're currently seeing John Racer in the number 5 machine, just pulling into pit lane because obviously we reset the session. We head into qualifying. So, last minute competition, that was who we saw there, John Racer and Guido Zito in the Aston Martin. Now, you were asking about the Porsches, and believe it or not, that is the only Porsches that we have had in the championship. No, you're right. We had 3. We had Chartier Community in the 116, so they're out. Riser Esports in the 70, and then Writer Engineering in the 724. So I think it's the 724 that are missing of Writer Engineering. So you're absolutely spot on when you said that we've got slightly less Porsches.
My observation skills are working, at least at the start of this broadcast. We'll see whether they continue to work as
all that
the
matters, mate,
broadcast
isn't it? It's all that matters, you know. As long as they're working now, nobody's going to remember at the end anyway. It's absolutely fine.
That is very true. Also, the P2 Sim Sport Car is out in qualifying and being piloted by a driver with one of the best racing driver names around, Christopher Verstappen. Absolutely love that name, and that will never change for me either. That is a really good shot, isn't it? Seeing the cars just well, hurtling down the S's.
Sight and a half, isn't it? I mean, the way that the cars are coming down through the dipper in towards Forest Elbow there, all line astern. Normally, you would be wanting to try and get your own bit of space, but in this, I think you're actually having a little bit of a benefit here, Yousuf, if you're behind the car in front, because you can kind of wig them out, make them make a mistake, and also get a little cheeky toe down the back straight as well.
I still remember back to one of my 24-hour karting races where we let one of my teammates go out and do qualifying, and he thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to sit behind someone so that I can get a tow and push him along. And all that happened is he got held up and he put in an absolutely shocking qualifying lap that we all laughed at him for afterwards. But Max Voigtner will be the first person to start a qualifying lap, and he's got Zahir Essa behind him. A bit of a gap between the pair of them, so Zahir can try to close in onto the Porsche and then maybe get a bit of a tow towards the end of the lap when they're heading down towards the chase.
Yeah, here they go up that long mountain straight through to the kinked, banked right-hander here. Again, so easy to get that wrong. You have to be really, really heavy onto the brakes there, and that's exactly what they've done. Goes up into the cutting. Then again, you want to try and trail brake that car around. You want to keep the weight on the front of that car, make sure that the back end doesn't spin out. And now if you're brave, you can just absolutely keep it pinned up here. Unfortunately, your boy here is an absolute Jesse, that's what we'd say up here in Scotland. And I do have to lift. It's just not happening. I never have the confidence in the car. Through the park, through McPhilmy Park, over Skyline, down through the Dipper here. This is the most exciting part, because it doesn't matter how good you are as a race driver. Come down this bit, and if you can cut up right, it makes you feel amazing. It makes you feel like Michael Schumacher or Ayrton Senna or any of your favourite racing superheroes. Getting that section down through the Dipper and the S's, out of Forest Elbow there, and onto the back straight there. Now, interestingly, Forest Elbow was a name that I wasn't really sure where it came from, and then it's one of those things, Yousuf, that I wish I'd never looked up, because, of course, one of the things that they do here, believe it or not, you think car racing is mad, bike racing here at Bathurst is another thing completely, and it was well, I'll leave you to work out why it's called Forest Elbow at that corner.
Did someone lose their elbow?
Yep. One of the pretty much the greatest bike racers for their generation, many years ago here at Bathurst, and believe it or not, even after that, it still continued racing and won quite a few championships afterwards.
I mean, that just sounds like a classic motorbike rider. You're not a go-to motorbike rider unless you have broken some bone somewhere, got a metal replacement, and then continue to race and won races as well. Yeah,
and of course, you know, the thing with Jack Forrest, which is who the corner's named after. I mean, this is back in 1947, so it's a fair time ago, but as somebody that only recently started getting into bike racing when I was working up at Knockhill, I mean, that comment you made there about typical bike racer, absolutely, they are every single one of them is as mad as a box of frogs. And look, it's a scary, intimidating enough prospect going around this circuit in a 500 brake horsepower GT3 machinery with all the aero, but yeah, it takes a different type of person to go around on the two wheels. Although what I would imagine is what a rush that would be. But talking of on a rush right now, Arthur Kammerer, he's getting his rush on right now. 201.365 is his pole lap right now, closely followed by Jardier in that number 39 machine just behind him in that Yas Heat community car, teamed up, of course, with Krzysztof Muskowski. But looks like what's that, about 0.2 of a second, with 9 minutes left to go in qualifying here.
And the big surprise so far is the fact that Zahir Essa in the 75 car only down in P6, 0.6 off Arthur Kammerer's time, and that is not where Essa wants to be right now. He does improve up into P2. That's what we expected to see from the McLaren driver. And I don't know if you recall, David, back when we were interviewing the 75 team last week, we had Luke Whitehead and George Boothby, and Luke was talking about how he was a bit new to the McLaren. He was still learning the car, still getting to grips with it. I wonder if that's the same actually for Zahir Essa, because Luke Whitehead seems to be on top of the car now, but maybe Zahir needs a bit more time.
It could be. I mean, the thing is that I've seen Zahir from many different championships, so it won't take him too much time to get used to it, but the time's rapidly coming down. It was, first off, it was Jaroslav Honzig taking pole position. That's now been beaten by an outrageous lap there by Arthur Kammerer, 2 minutes 0.7 in that number 89 machine for BS+ competition. So doing the business, you've got to say. I mean, nearly 0.5 of a second ahead of the entire field. This is where the times will start to rapidly fall down here, as we see Zahir Essa here in the number 75 Yas Heat GTWR machine. So at the moment then he's just going down through the dipper, through the S's, and then this is going to be the tight left-hander into Forest Elbow. It's a double corner because you have to brake, you have to turn, and then you have to turn in the car again, and then you can feed out the throttle and just get straight back onto it here. This is then down through that back straight there. Wonderful, wonderful section here because it's one of the fastest corners here in the circuit there on the Conrod Straight. Through the chase, that sweeping right-hander. It's the last of the late breakers onto the brakes here and through the left, and then there's right. Again, you'll see a lot of incidents down at this corner here because you'll see too wide. Cars will be trying to send it wherever they possibly can into the last corner, onto the brakes for Murray's. And as here Essa in the number 75 improves, but only by a 10th. That's not going to be enough to move up a position there.
That lap that we saw from camera was absolutely phenomenal, going 4/10ths quicker. And here at Mount Panorama, getting a perfect lap is so difficult. I mean, in terms of getting a perfect lap at any track, the most difficult is going to be the Nordschleife because of how long it is. And then it's probably here at Mount Panorama because it is such a difficult circuit to get right. But when you do, it is one of the most rewarding. And, well, I like to say that these guys are aliens and maybe we'll see that perfect lap time, but it is so rare to hook up a lap to perfection here in Australia, here at Bathurst, that there's always a bit of time to be found, which can always give a bit of hope to the drivers during a qualifying session.
It's what keeps you going, I think. It's what really keeps that motivation quite high. As we see Christopher stripping it, getting it a little bit sideways, coming down through the dipper and through the S's there. The problem is that once you lose time through this downhill section, it's pretty much game over because you're right onto a very long straight here, the Conrod Straight, and then down into the chase as well. You need all that momentum, you need all that power as well. The lap from Arthur Camera, though, I mean, let's face it, that was just absolutely ridiculous. He's gone back out to have another go at it, but I mean, it's so disheartening as well, Yousuf. If you're another driver there and you think, right, I've put in a proper banging lap time there, so you can imagine Caracas or Jardier has gone in thinking, yeah, I'm quite happy with that, and then Camera comes in with 9 minutes left to go and just sets down that 2 minute 0.7. Yeah, you're not exactly best pleased with that one.
It can really destroy your moral. I also want to give a big shout out right now to Caracas because that is a Volante car that is currently sitting in P2. That is a sterling job from Volante Racing by Ace Tech Sim Sports. So currently, we'll see whether Caracas can improve further. But either way, if the Volante car starts on the front row, they're going to be chuffed to bits with that.
Oh, they really, really are. You were on about, you mentioned earlier as well, Yousuf, about Misano being a big race for the season. We could, really see who is going to be out in front of this championship by then. I don't even think it comes to that. I think if the BS+ competition guys can get themselves to the front and something happens to the second place and the third place in the championship, Yas Heat, GTWR and Jardier Community, if they do not get, either of them do not get full points from tonight, I honestly think we can say goodbye to them for the championship.
And BS+ competition are just in a situation where, and when we spoke to George Boothby and Luke Whitehead last week, and they're essentially saying, yeah, the championship is slipping away from them, and they have to hope that some good fortune comes their way. It needs to come here at Bathurst, because when you look at Misano and Silverstone, those aren't the thrills and spills circuits. Those are just the thrills. But here at Bathurst, this is the thrills and the spills. But as with luck, it is a two-sided coin, and it can go either way. Will it favor BS+ competition? Will it favor Yas Heat? Maybe it won't favor either of them, and we'll get a clean race from our race leaders, which is what I personally would like to see. I hate it when a championship comes down to bad luck plaguing one team over another, as Caracas makes his way through the S's and down into the depot.
Yeah, I mean, I never like to see, on the one hand, I never like to see a championship decided by an incident. It's never the the best way to watch it unfold. But on the other hand, I'm one of these people that just likes to watch the world burn. So
Well, true.
it's win-win either way, Yousuf. I'm going to be happy either way. But I mean, coming back to that point, I mean, if we compare the incidents that we had last time out at Nürburgring, and the that final chicane where the two leaders at that point had made separate mistakes, but exactly the same mistake. If you have an accident here at Bathurst, there's a 99.99999% chance that you are going to have huge damage to your car. It's very, very unlikely. I mean, you look at every single corner. It's usually for the most part, it's a high-speed corner, and if you go into the wall, you're going to go into that wall. You're going to go into the other wall across. You're probably going to go back into the original wall, and you're going to get hit by several cars in the meantime. So I feel bad for anyone that is feeling a little bit uncomfortable tonight taking part, and maybe in VR as well, because tonight is going to be one of those races where you're maybe a little bit more nervous than you'd normally be. However, have a look at that last lap there from Grantas Caracas there in the number 14. 2 minutes, 0.1. And I think that's a change on that last one. So that must be what, a 201.047, if my maths is right there. So that is a heck of an improvement there from Grantas Caracas. We've definitely got a little bit of game on right now as they're trying desperately to get past that car up in front. That was the number 23 of Sanidis. I think they've just given up on this one, and they're not going to have enough time with a minute left to go, I don't think, to get another lap in here.
They will be able to make it to the start-finish line, but the question is, did they put in enough fuel to do a further lap? Either way, thrilling lap from Caracas to put himself even further up into P2. Zahiretta, what does he have? He's the one who's really out of sorts as we see that green McLaren parked on the exit of Forest Elba. You talked about incidents here, and you said that there's a 99.999% chance of getting a lot of damage. There's also probably a 99.9% chance that if you have an incident, someone's going to collect you as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% here, and you can see the last of the cars here trying to desperately make their way over to the line here. This is actually, I think this is going to be cutting pretty sort of nip and tuck, whether or not he does make it to the start line in time. 7 seconds left to go. No, he should be okay. This is tight. This is tight. I don't think he's made it. He's not.
No.
There we go. So Caracas doesn't get a chance to go there. Was he dawdling just a little bit too long? Either way, I mean, look, regardless, it would have taken a gargantuan effort as Jaroslav Honzik improves as well to go 3/10 slower. But Artur Kammerer in that BS Plus competition machine in 89, look, that is just a scandalous lap time there.
Is there anything that Zahir Essa has left under the bonnet? Because he was able to start his final lap. He actually just improved, jumped ahead of Nikolai on his previous lap. Now he's in P4, but he's got 2 cars between himself and his championship arrival of that 89 BS Plus competition car. So let's see whether he can hook this lap together and at the very least move up 1 or 2 further positions on the grid.
I mean, it's possible, but we've went on about how difficult this track is, and the thing is that's driving by yourself. That's not counting any other drivers on there. That's not counting trying to overtake, because overtaking here is very, very difficult. Realistically, you've got 2 overtaking opportunities. You've got the Mountain Straight and you've got Conrod Straight. Those 2 very long straights. And the thing is, especially with Conrod Straight, is if you make a move, you're going to have to go defensive immediately, because they're going to try and get the undercut going in through to the chase as well. Whereas if you get the move done at the Mountain Straight, it's very difficult for anybody to make that happen. What I'm worried about is this is kind of crunch time for a lot of these teams. Are we going to see some pretty wild moves? I don't want to see anything going on to like the top of Skyline. We see it, time and time again, where you think, oh, I've got the pace here, so I'm just going to put my car on the inside. And what always normally happens is unadulterated death at the mountain.
It's very risky to try to make a move through any part from I guess, Griffin's mount all the way to Forest Elba. That's just, you sit behind, you stay in formation, and then you wait to do your battling afterwards. It's practically like someone made a track. They made a very basic track that was very wide or fairly wide, lots of overtaking opportunities, lots of 90-degree corners, and then they said, wait, this is boring. Let's just add in a mini Monaco in the middle of the circuit, and hey presto, you have Mount Panorama.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they've done there, and they've done it really, really well. But we're just seeing here we've got the cars on the grid then. So let's go through the starting order then, as we've got Angus Fender for BS Plus Competition in pole position, alongside that's going to be the number 14 of Volante Racing's Jonathan Riley. Brilliant job for them to get up into that front row. Jaroslav Honzig for the number 39, that is the Yas Heat community car, is going to be in third place alongside Zahir Essa on row 2. That is the 75 Yas Heat GTWR machine. And then in fifth position on row 3, it's Victor Nikolai in the number 31 West Competition Racing alongside the 790 Simracing.R of Dragos Simeon in sixth position. Felix Deepers in the 99 Lutz Motorsports BMW is in seventh place, and alongside him on row 4 is going to be the 116 Porsche. That is, of course, the Jaguar community car of Max Voigtner in behind the wheel of that one. On row 5 is going to be the number 72 machine, and that is the RevSport International that we're seeing was getting a little bit of love in the Twitch channel there. And behind the wheel of the 72 is Joe Scher for the start of the race. Christoph Verstappen in the 991 Bentley for P2 Simsport. He's in 10th. On row 6 is going to be Noah Sully Vasquez Rodriguez in the 199 McLaren for Volante Racing number 2. And then it is the 125 RNE Team Red of Ben McConnell in 12th position. At the back of the grid, all by himself on row number 7, is going to be the 13th. In fact, no, sorry, I keep forgetting we've got loads more, never mind. Is going to be the number 70 machine there, the number 70 Porsche Riser Esports of Wojtek Dvorak, and keeping him company is going to be the number 23 Consistent Racing Esports machine of Federicio Vagnolo beside him as well. Row 8 is going to be the number 5 Last Minute Competition of Guido Zito, and then in the 16th position is going to be the number 60 Hayes Racing machine of Diego Ruiz as well. And then the 69 is starting in 17th position, and that is going to be Scott that is behind the wheel of that one, with the 323 starting at the back there. That is FSDR Slow Runners, and that is Paul Prescott behind the wheel of that one. Delicato Racing it was in the 69, and it's your Scott behind the wheel just in front of him in 17th place there. So it looks like we've got the 18 cars ready to go as we start on our formation lap here, Yousuf. Right, what are we thinking ahead of tonight's 90-minute race at the mountain?
So the big thing to remember is this opening lap. Cold tyres, especially going through the S's for the first time, it could be disaster. The other thing to remember is we have rolling starts in GT racing. Now, Fender is starting on the inside, Riley is on the outside. This means that Fender has a compromised run into turn 1. He's not going to be able to take the racing line, and that can compromise him all the way up the mountain straight and into Griffin's mount for the first time. So how aggressive does that number 14 of Jonathan Riley want to be? Because he can be a real thorn in the side of the 89 of Arthur Camara heading up the hill. If he really wants to challenge and keep his McLaren on the outside of that BMW, all of a sudden it might not just be Caracas, it might be Jaroslav Honzik as well, trying to challenge Camara up the hill.
Yeah, so here we go then, the cars on what arguably might be one of the most important laps of this race here, the formation lap, all about getting the heat into the tyres, into the brakes as well. Now, the strange thing is, and you'll notice this from some of the other weeks, you notice how the drivers aren't weaving about erratically. They aren't, heaving on the brakes too much. They're starting to do that now. They're wanting to get a little bit of heat into the brakes, but there's certainly none of the frantic weaving that you're seeing from the front three that you're seeing further down the field. And what that is they're basically they're wanting to hold on to as much life in those tires as they possibly can. They'll get the heat into them over the first couple of laps here, but they are going for the long haul. This is all about strategy here. They're wanting to keep in as much in the tank as they possibly can, and also trying to keep a tiny little bit of fuel here. But I'm looking at the field here, Yousuf. Who are we thinking is going to take this one off the top of our heads?
You'd be hard pressed to bet against BS+ Competition. Arte Camera, Angus Fender are just incredibly quick drivers, and you'd have to think that they're going to be taking this one.
I agree. I think you'd really struggle to look past them. What I'm going to say is that, remember from what we've seen so far, the McLaren seemed to have been up until last week on Nürburgring, where that all turned itself on its head. The BMWs seem to eat through their tyres a little bit more now. Track temperature 33 degrees Celsius here. I do wonder about that, but it comes down to this, like you said, that first opening lap here. If BS+ Competition get away instant free with the front of that, and they get, say, a 2 second, 3 second gap in the first couple of laps, it's game over. That is usually what is the case here. However, mistakes have been made, so yeah, anything can happen. It feels like such a cop-out, but I think this is BS+ Competition's to lose.
Absolutely. Also, that 14 of Volante, does it have the race pace like it did in qualifying, or will it just be a buffer for Arte Camera?
Here we go then, 90 minutes of Mount Panorama here in Bathurst, the virtual recreation for the GT Mega Challenger Cup. The cars making their way around that first corner. 18 different teams. Our third to final race here. And we wait for the green flag. Remember, it's right at the tail end of this straight, just before Hell Corner. And there we go. That's a good start for the McLaren on the outside. But again, the point being, on the outside into Hell Corner, gets caught up there. And Caracas has now got Jaroslav Honzig straight behind him right now in that third position. But look at the grunt that they've got here. I'm wondering, actually, is there a little bit of bump drafting going on there? There is, because look at the two of them now, right up to the back of that BMW, and Jaroslav Honzig thinks about making a move into turn number 2 there, thinks better of it, but that was definitely a little bit of teamwork from the two McLarens there.
Yeah, and you know that Honzig wants to be pushing Caracas to put as much pressure on to Camera as possible. The BMW, I think it was of Deepers, or sorry, it wasn't of Deepers, but one of the BMWs was having a shot at Zahir Essa into turn 1, but it is still the McLaren who sits into P4, although there is a rather large gap between himself and his teammate Jaroslav Honzig in third.
Yeah, top 3 have cleared out just now, or at least that's what the plan is right now. 0.6 of a second between Jaroslav Honzig and Zahir Essa. Gap coming down now as they come through the S's. Remember, this is all going to be dictated by the pace of your race leader there, Arte Camera, as we come down through the dipper and through the S's for the first time. Vaskin into that tight left-hander at Forest Elbow, and then down through the corner road straight. Now, this is going to be interesting. Are we going to see a move here from Grantas Caracas here from Volante Racing? He's got nothing to lose right now. He really wants to have a little go at this just now, but I can't see that one actually happening. We'll certainly wait and see. Moves to the left, moves to the right, and that is going to be so tight coming down through the chase as the BS+ Competition car makes a move all the way around that corner there, down through into Murray's Corner. And again, it's going to be battle of the late breakers down here. This is starting to get a little bit fighty. Is the McLaren fancying moving to the inside? It's not going to happen. And again, we go back to Hell Corner. We move into lap number 2 here. And yeah, I'm a little bit concerned for BS+ Competition right now, because they do not have the tearaway pace right now. And again, let's have a look at Jaroslav Honzig here, Yousuf, to see if it's going to be another bump. I think it's a little bit too far back.
I think the the other thing that we have to consider is that McLaren looks very, very quick in a straight line, and Arctic Camera is under significant pressure, A, through the mountain straight that we just went through, and then also through the Conrad straight down into the chase. If I was Jaroslav Honzik right now, I wouldn't want to put any pressure on to Carreras. I would want to let Grantas Carreras push as much as he can and challenge Arctic Camera, because as you mentioned, David, Carreras has nothing to lose. Honzik does, or Honzik and Essa both do. So let Carreras push onto the rear end of Camera. It does seem, though, that BMW is better through the twisty section of Sector 2.
Yeah, 100%. I believe we've got a replay of what happened right at the start there, so we'll bring that up when we can. In fact, here we go. Let's have a look then. So this is right back to the opening lap then, and this is going to be into turn 1. And I've got to be honest, that is optimistic, shall we say, from the Aston, but it actually turns out to be the McLaren further back there that tries to drive through another car there, by which point all of the damage is done. So we'll see if race control have got anything to say about that, but the 323 dropping back a little bit there. And of course that is the 323 of FSDR Slow Runners. Dan Stevens currently behind the wheel of that one. So, as it stands in, Arctic Camera, BS+ Competition up in front of Grantas Carreras there in the number 14 machine, and number 14 Volante Racing in second place ahead of Jaroslav Honzik in the number 39 car. Now the thing with this is as we said, with it being a 90-minute race, I wonder if now that Grantas Carreras has been released from having to defend from Jaroslav Honzik, if now he can concentrate on that BMW in front. And let's face it, that first lap he was looking very, very fighty indeed, and now he's in the tow. This is looking a little bit more promising.
And I'm just wondering, how much is a Camera conserving his tyres? Because we saw at the Nürburgring that the McLarens were significantly quicker than the BMWs at the end of that opening stint, and we know that through the S's here, through the tight and twisty section, it is impossible to be able to overtake. So it's an opportunity actually for Camera to even be able to allow his tyres to rest for a little bit while Carreras continues to push.
So I'm just hearing we've got another replay here of one of the cars potentially losing a little bit control. I wonder if it's actually the 323. We'll have a look here. And yeah, so this is earlier on. And oh, that is straight off. That looks like completely missed the braking point for that that machine there.
That almost looked like a brake pedal failure, because even if he missed the brakes, you'd expect him to have got that car slowed down a bit earlier, I think. Unless he just completely backed out of it because he thought there was going to be a crash, and then gets onto the gravel, you can't really get onto the brakes and runs that deep, but very, very bizarre. Also, David, would you allow me to indulge myself a little bit regarding that opening lap incident?
Always.
I think Dan Stevens got erased.
Well, the 14 seconds back would certainly lend credence to that theory there. I think that he's, what we like to call in the industry, he got yeeted.
Yeah. I just think that if there's a driver called Eraser, John Eraser, I am making full use of that surname. You know, the Eraser strikes back. Get erased or get erasered. I don't know. Did you ever see that old Arnie movie called Eraser?
Old Arnie. Anybody over the age of 35 is now like, what? Are you, what? yes, I did, mate.
Absolutely classic. I remember watching that when I was young. I haven't seen it in a long time. I just remembered the scene where he fights with a crocodile. Also, we're in Australia, so crocodiles are surprisingly relevant, as I think Grantas Carreras wants to be the crocodile hunting down Arctic Camera right now.
I see what you did there. I very much appreciate that crocodile-related pun. Although I guess any reference to Crocodile Dundee would be far before your time. But I think that actually genuinely is before your time here. But look at this though. The BMW really seeming to make a meal of it down through the dipper and down through the S's there. And Caracas now right onto the back end of that machine in front. And this is exactly what we were saying about that BMW struggling towards the end of its life with those tyres. But we're only 8 minutes into the race there, so you've got to say it's just a case of maybe pushing a little bit too hard here. A little bit of fuel conservation, you would imagine, going on for the McLaren as well. And they're going to come side by side, potentially down through into the chase there. Is it going to be onto the brakes then? He thinks about it. He had a look there, did the McLaren there of Grantas Caracas there, showing the nose into Arthur Camera. And this is now going to be a nuisance for the BS Plus competition car. The problem is, do you fight it or do you just let it go? Because at the end of the day, as long as you've got that car in between you and your championship rival, Yousuf, you're going to be happy because you're inflicting damage and you're staying out in front.
This is such an inspired drive right now from Grantas Caracas. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Volante Racing, they got a P3 in the opening race of the season at Monza. After that, they've had a P5, a couple of P4s. They didn't pick up any points in Spa. I'm not sure if they weren't racing or whether they just finished outside of the points. But now all of a sudden, not only are they in second, but they're challenging for the race win. And Caracas is dragging Jaroslav Honzik along with him. This is what the Yas Heat team needs in order to challenge that BS Plus competition car who currently lead the GT Omega Challenge Championship.
Yeah, Zahir S is wanting to try and join this little party as well, but the five of them actually, because you've got Victor Nikolai actually up there as well. That was a huge moment.
Clipping the wall. I don't quite know how much damage Caracas would have had. It might be an extra couple of seconds in the pits, but I think it is just bodywork damage. That might, though, be a bit of a sign for Caracas, you know, just calm it down a bit. You have a pace, don't throw the car through. But then again, this is Mount Panorama we're talking about. You have to be throwing the car, otherwise you're going to be losing so much time in the middle sector.
Absolutely, and it does look like he's lost a little bit of pace there on that one, because look at how close Jaroslav Honzik now is to the back end of that McLaren. That also means then that Zahir Essa and Victor Nikolai getting brought up into this fight. I've got no doubt that he'll close up the gap again, but a scary, scary brush of the wall there, and I think he's lived to tell the tale of it, but yeah, that'll have definitely rattled him up for sure on that one.
And also, I think that is Victor Nikolai right on the back of Zahir Essa, who is struggling to keep up with these front three here at Mount Panorama. It is still early stages of the race. Just over 10 minutes have passed. So it could be a case of Zahir Essa maybe just managing his tyres a little bit more, and then we'll come into things in the second part of his stint. But judging from his qualifying pace, I just think Zahir Essa can't match the speed that we're seeing from these front three drivers.
Just saying as well, 10-second penalty given to the number 69 car, and of course that is, I'll tell you in just a second, that's Del Cato Racing that are on that one, and so that's Max Norden. I wonder if that's the start line incident, or sorry, the turn one incident there, where you saw one of the McLarens going straight into the pack there. It wouldn't surprise me to see that being given.
So it was the 5 of Johnny Racer that went into the pack. I think Mike Norden would have been, it would have been him who was involved when coming out of turn 1, 2 cars had a coming together, and then one of them spun across the 2 cars that were behind them. So when we were looking at that incident, I think our eyes were set on Johnny Racer in that Aston Martin kind of dive bombing it into T1, and then we didn't really realize the second incident that was happening. We saw the aftermath of it, but we didn't quite get to see who did what.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, because you saw John Racer flying up the inside in that Aston, and you thought, oh, this has got trouble, but he actually ended up taking to the grass, and it was just immediately below that, you saw one of the McLarens getting into another one of the McLarens and spinning it right around, and presumably that is Norden in the 69, so race control dealing with that one very, very quickly, but in all intents and purposes, as it looks like Dan Stevens having another incident in 3-2-3 there now, 28 seconds off of the field there. It's been a remarkably good start. We've done 15 minutes, so if it all goes to hell in a handbasket now, at least we've had 15 minutes of decent racing here.
Yeah, we've had some really good racing. Sure, there haven't been many overtakes, if any, but we've been seeing so much pressure being applied on our camera that it's been fantastic to watch. And one of the things that I like to say when people say that racing is boring, you don't need to always have overtakes for a race to be exciting.
Oh, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of excitement in the strategy and what hasn't actually happened, because it leads you to think, you know, what could happen out here on the track. Though, what I will say is that it does look like Arthur Camara, though, is starting to build a little bit of a gap for himself there in that number 89 BS Plus competition car. More importantly, Jaroslav Honzik starting to drop away a little bit from this lead battle right now. Now, what could happen is that Caracas is just, you know, easing off a little bit, trying to regain his composure, get the tyres back to temperature. But it does look like that BMW just starting to ever so slightly start to stretch its legs a little bit.
I'm also wondering when we'll be seeing those pit stops. A 1.5 hour long race, so I think we're probably going to be expecting to see pit stops between 40 to 50 minutes, somewhere around there. I think that's what we pretty much had at the Nürburgring as well. And unlike the Nürburgring, where we were discussing whether teams would double stint their tires, I think here at Bathurst, I don't think you take that chance with how much pain the 4 tires will be taking over the course of one.
Well, it's a pretty straight choice for me. It's like, do you want to have a good result in the race, or do you want your car to be crushed into a cube? That's the choice of whether you take tyres or not here. But again, just supporting that idea that Camara's starting to eke out the pace there. 9/10 of a second now, the gap between him and second place. And more importantly, as we said, as we keep coming back to the points on the championship, this would give them an extra 50 points over, an extra 25 points over that second place team. So, you know, in all intents and purposes, that's 25 points that the number 39 team cannot afford to let go, because that brings the gap now to near 100 points if the race was to end as it is right now. But thankfully, 75 minutes left to go, an hour and 15 minutes, and goodness knows we know exactly how much can change in that amount of time.
Also, did you say 35 or 25 points?
35 points they would get from that, because they would get 25 points, because it's 150 for a win and 125 for third place. So given that they're about 65 points or something like that ahead right now, 57 points that are ahead right now. So that would mean that that would be 78 points, I believe, that they would be ahead of by the end of tonight if things were to end right now. Those points aren't easy to come by. That sort of a deficit, that's a big ask.
But it is still close, I want to say, between the top 5. I feel like with how things are currently sitting, especially when you consider that there is a driver change to be had, any one of the top 5 could win. Right now, Victor Nicolai, stuck behind Zahir Essa, has a lot more pace, I think, than the McLaren in front of him. And if he can get through, he can definitely close in onto Jaroslav Honzik. The issue is the BMW just does not have the straight line speed versus the McLaren. That, or maybe it's just higher downforce setups from the BMWs right now. But you can see, once we get onto the mountain straight once again, look at that BMW. It won't close in on the McLaren. And when you compare that to how much we saw Caracas and Honzik closing in onto camera on the straights, it is a night and day difference. So here we go, out of turn 1, you can visually see the gap between Honzik and Essa. And let's see if between Nicolai and Essa. And Nicolai doesn't close in it. If anything, that gap almost feels like it's getting bigger.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, doesn't it? It goes out and then it comes back in again. And now you're starting to see it close right back up here as we see Zahir Essa right, he's having to defend so hard from Victor Nicolai. The problem with the BMWs is that, again, setup is a huge factor here for these races. And the BS Plus competition guys, like, they are ridiculous when it comes to setting up their car. They They work so hard behind the scenes to get the best possible car underneath them, and this is what I compare real life racing to. You can have cars that are absolutely identical, but it's the drivers that have prepared the most, it's the teams that have prepared the most. That's what gets you the extra seconds, that's what gets you race wins, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. The thing for the BMW though of Victor Nicolai right now is the fact that as much as he is wanting to get past Zahir Essa, you know, he's in the position multiple times, but he's not actually able to make a realistic pass on that to McLaren. And as long as that's the case they're in no man's land because they're getting dropped further and further back here. They're now, what's that, 3.3 seconds, I believe it is, behind your race leader. So it's not looking good for them catching up to say like a podium place or that. But you know, going back to the leader, Yousuf, that gap now 1.2 seconds. This is what I was warning about. This is now the BMW will start to stretch his legs.
And I think Victor Nicolai, to go back to this battle for P4, that gap has really ballooned as Zahir Essa now 3 seconds down on Jaroslav Honzik. I think the BMW has to pit earlier. It has to go for an undercut, get Sebastian Apostle in the car and hope that you can get the undercut off and jump ahead of Zahir Essa, because the BMW just, I hate to say it, but the BMW does not have the straight line speed to make an overtake, and the only way that you're going to overtake if you're in a BMW challenging against McLaren, from what we have seen so far, is if the McLaren makes a mistake either coming out of Forest Elbow or going through turn 1 Hell's Corner. That's the only way a BMW will have a chance of getting alongside.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that one. As we go picture in picture with a little bit further down, I believe that is Joe Scher, who's done a grand job getting himself, by the way, in that number 72 BMW up to 8th position, fighting off the 9-1 Bentley of Christoph Verstappen. That's him coming through down through the dipper just now. In fact, actually, sorry, I'm telling a lie, of course. That is that Caracas and Honzig just up in front?
It might be, yes it is, it is that blue-green hue of the Volante that is currently sitting in 2nd place. As I think Nicolai is closer than he's ever been to the rear end of Zahir Essa coming out of Forest Elbow, down the Conrod Straight, or well, down and up the Conrod Straight because of the undulations that occur in the mountains of Mount Panorama. But again, the BMW still too far back to have a look down into the chase.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key thing for it. And with 70 minutes left to go, you know, this is now, it's all about building these dominoes, isn't it? It's about laying the foundation for what is going to be your strategy throughout the race. Maybe Victor Nicolai is happy sitting behind this McLaren. Maybe the pace is good enough to fend off the cars behind, and he's like, right, well, I might as well save a little bit of fuel here, because as much as he's continually closing up onto the back of Zahir Essa here, again, he's not pushing the car alongside. He's not forcing the move here. So it could be that he's just flicking down into a different engine map behind that car in front, saving a little bit of fuel. If he does, there's definitely the possibility of getting a little cheeky undercut or an overcut here.
Yeah, absolutely. Still some time to go before we do get to that pit window. Camera continues to extend his lead over Grandes Caracas, and now Jaroslav Honzik is in the situation of, does he want to try to get past? Does he risk slowing the pair of them down? Because while Arte Camera has pulled away, it's not a huge gap, but Honzik definitely looks quicker than his fellow McLaren in front.
Yeah, just watching him coming down through the dipper as well, as we see Max Norden into the pits then, and serving that 10-second penalty. I'm wondering if there's a little bit of damage on the 69 machine just now. He's got going again, and that's going to drop him behind Stevens in that 323 machine. In fact, just coming to a stop in pit lane. This is the issue now, because Caracas now dropping well and truly. I wouldn't be surprised to see that, what's that, 1.8, 1.9 now behind our race leader. Honzig is on the move, and do not be surprised to see Honzig sticking a little nose out in front in the next couple of laps or so.
To to be honest, considering how close Honzik is looking, I think he wants to have a go this lap around or on the lap that is about to get underway. He closes so much under braking, and it's all going to be about the exit from Hell Corner, turn 1. And can he get alongside Carecas up the mountain straight?
Well, that's what we're away to find out here. Through Hell Corner, then through turn 1, up the mountain straight here. Got the toe, and this surely is going to be one of the best chances for that McLaren in third place to get ahead. But very equally matched, and if anything, I actually think Caracas maybe stretching away a tiny, tiny little bit here. Certainly, Honzik not able to get alongside in any meaningful way here, but still providing that pressure. Such an early stage of the race. I think we're about 15 minutes away from seeing our pit stops there, but you just got a look at that in the picture there. The drivers really having to struggle with that sunshine coming up through the cutting there.
Absolutely, and it can be very annoying. I mean, you can change settings, unlike in real life racing, you know, you can't turn the sun off. But here in sim racing on ACC, you can, I think there are some settings that you can do to make the sun less blinding. Or you could just turn down the brightness of your monitor. That might also help your case somewhat. But either way, it's not what you really want. It's just that extra tool that can throw you off in your laps, in your attempt, in your bid to nail lap after lap here at Bathurst. One battle that I do want to keep an eye out on is the gap for P8 between Cher, Verstappen and, pardon me, the battle for P9 between Verstappen, McConnell, Sully, Vadquez, Rodriguez and Voitner, because these guys are actually all pretty close together in the championship. The 991 is the P2 sim sport. They're currently in P11. But the three ahead, or the three behind in this case, is Volante Racing number 2, Rise Esports, R&E Team Red, and those three have been so close to each other for the course of this season, as now Zahir Essa coming under pressure from Victor Nicolai.
Oh, here we go then. That was a cheeky little move there. A little look up the outside for Victor Nicolai. There wasn't realistically any big chance of that coming off, but it's pressure. It's all that is about here as they go up the straight here. So we're going to have our eyes on stocks here, because Honzik is onto the back of Caracas. I think that gap is still a little bit further out than this gap is here, but you're seeing here the grunt, the pull, the roar of the BMW up this mountain straight here as they come into the right hander. And yeah, this is starting to get a little bit scary, because this is where, whether they like it or not, this is where the instincts of the racing drivers come out. Because if you see a car in front of you, as that's a mistake there from Victor Nicolai, he goes way too deep on the right hand side into the cutting there. He'll take a couple of corners to get that car gathered back up there. I've got no doubt that he locked on the brakes there, and very lucky to avoid the barriers at either side. But if anything, that is a get out of jail free card right now for Zahir Essa. So this is the problem. Again, there's no guarantee that Zahir Essa won't kind of make a mistake there. And what is actually happening with Zahir Essa, because that was a big gap to Victor Nicolai, and that gap's now gone completely there. So the issue is, right, see when you've got a car behind you that's constantly behind you and just, you know, repeatedly pushing you lap after lap after lap, then, you know, you kind of know what to expect. As Honzig's got past Caracas, they're side by side coming down into the chase then. The move is done, and Honzig gets into second place there.
Yeah, great stuff from Honzig. So maybe it was a little mistake from Caracas coming through Forest Elbow, and that just allowed Honzig to get alongside on the Conrad straight and get the move done before they even got into the braking zone for the chase. But now, let's take a look at that gap between Camera and Honzig. 2.3 seconds. This is where Jaroslav Honzig has to absolutely nail lap after lap. Last time out at Nürburgring, Jaroslav Honzig was, I want to say, fairly off the pace, especially compared to his teammate. But here at Bathurst, it does look like he is feeling at one with the car. And now he's got some clear air, he can try to whittle down at his deficit.
Just watching this all unfold. It's fascinating stuff. And now all of the pressure builds on Jaroslav Honzig. In fact, let's see if we can get a replay of how that move all transpired there. As you see the two of them absolutely inseparable. So let's head to a GT Omega replay then, and this is on board then with Jardier, and it looks like it's going to be on the exit from Forest Elbow there. Oh, and it's a clip of the rear left tyre, and that'll do it. That's exactly what happened there, and Jardier handed it on a silver platter. He's going to say thank you very much for that one. Oh man, that is absolutely gutting for that car that's just now in third place.
There's also the positive for Volante Racing, which is the fact that Jaroslav Honzik seems to be quicker than Karekas, so maybe he can drag the number 14 car along with him in his pursuit to close in to the BMW of BS+ Competition, who currently lead the race. So it's not all doom and gloom for Volante right now, and we do know that Karekas has a lot of straight line speed in that McLaren, maybe even more so than Jaroslav Honzik. So there is still the opportunity for Volante Racing to bounce back and maybe get higher up on the podium.
Yeah, for sure. And just coming up to 60 minutes left to go, what that has done is that has allowed BS+ Competition to stretch away even more in the front of this race now. Now, what you've also got to figure out is the fact that those two are fighting themselves, so Jaroslav Honzik and Gergis Karakis in that second, third place there. That also brings the advantage down for BS+ Competition to just the 15 points then that they come away out with this. Still a boost for the championship, but maybe not as devastating for the championship as they'd like. And realistically, that 39 car doing as much as they possibly can right now, short of actually taking the race lead, to keep the negative outcome of this race down to an absolute minimum here.
And I think that gap, once Honzik had passed Karekas, was at 2.3 seconds. They extended to 2.5 seconds, but now that Karekas has been overtaken and has someone in front of him, it's like he's all of a sudden found some extra pace, and hopefully this pushes Jaroslav Honzik along. I say hopefully, not because I don't like BS+ Competition, but because I want to see BS+ Competition get closed down so we have a three-way battle for the lead once again.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's it, done and dusted now with that BS+ Competition car. If they do get caught, I think it's going to be their own mistake that does that, but certainly from the pace, I think that Jaroslav is faster than Karakis, but I think Karakis, that is just the setup of the car is either falling away from him. It seems to be that the rear end is starting to slide out, and certainly that little collision is not going to have helped there. So while Honzik, I think, will break away from that number 14 behind, I don't see them closing the gap. And in fact, the times are kind of showing that BMW up in front now, 2.7 seconds up the road. That was about 2.2 at the beginning of this lap here. So the other thing, though, is that the number 89 going to be coming across some lap traffic very, very shortly here. But yeah, this is starting to get a little bit tense and a little bit nail-biting here, because with just under an hour left to go in the race, I've got really no idea how this is going to pan out. I've got a yellow flag halfway up the circuit there. That's the number 23 of Federic Varagnolo that has brought the yellow flag out. I'm going to presume that is a big incident, because that is at the exit of McPhillamy Park on the entrance to Skyline and the Dipper, and that car still stranded there. I am a little bit concerned about that one.
I'm just wondering how you do that, because if you have a car parked at the start of the usually it's you carry too much speed into the S's and then you hit a wall. So I'm just wondering, because there's a little piece of tarmac that you can use, as we do have a replay available. So I reckon he tried to use that piece of tarmac on the entry, got it wrong, and actually no, because he's still stopped. Does he have a problem and just brought the car to a stop? Let's take a look then.
He's done exactly what you said, Yousuf. He got that car stuck in, but oh no, that is the worst place, and the leaders are ready to come across him right now. Oh, that is frightening. So he needs to get that car moved. I've got a horrible feeling the leaders are going to come across him right this very, very second. In fact, he's got going again. The leaders, though, have managed to get past him. And in fact, he's just behind the leader right now. So you can see the 89 only losing about 2-3 tenths of a second there. but that is some sketchy stuff to see that car caught right in the middle of the track there. And the 23, in fact, looks like it. In fact, I can't actually see the 23 on the timing tower. So have they actually just straight up disconnected from the race here?
Maybe.
Because that's the 323. Yeah, so they've left the server, which is it's a shame, but it's possibly the safest thing that they could do.
I think it makes sense because we saw them stationary for so long, and if they wanted to get going, they could have. So I don't know how much damage they had to their car. Looking at the incident, it didn't look like it was enough of an impact to destroy the car completely. So I think maybe that's a rage quit. I don't know. Speculation at this point. I also want to keep an eye out on a battle further down between Cher and Verstappen, because Verstappen has been closing in this entire time, and is that Verstappen through? Or no, he's still defending the position.
Close, but no cigar. That BMW still looks like just in front. But well, we'll keep an eye on this, because in fact, that is the Bentley that's in front. Oh, that's a car in the background. Who was that? That's right on the lead up.
Was that Ruiz or Scott?
That was one of the lapped cars that was bouncing about like a pinball. Nonetheless, they've got going again. Was that the 75? No, that's
I think it was Scott. I think it was Scott, because the 69 car, I believe, is in the pits.
Yeah,
right
they're all
now.
the way back to the pits. You're absolutely spot on. Wow, what an instant then. So that is the 69 then of Delicato Racing, sharing that car with Max Norden. Now, they were running around about P16, P17 anyway, but that is not going to have helped their day out, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that car leaving, as well as Noah Sully Vasquez Rodriguez into pit lane. And I wonder if they got caught up in that incident as well. Look, this is what we've been saying all along here, Yousuf, is the fact that, you know, the mountain can bite at the most inopportune of times. The sun is going to be going down here. The temperature will be falling. We've got a replay of that incident. Yeah,
so let's see exactly what happened to Scott. It's very easy to make mistakes in this part of the circuit, but it looks like they're going relatively slowly anyway, coming into the corner.
Oh.
And
yeah, I think that
they
car's
were
already
going
damaged.
Before.
Yeah, that car's already damaged before they even start trying to turn that corner there. The first incident was actually a little bit before that, where the car bounced from the left-hand side over to the right-hand wall, and oh my good God, that's so lucky. In fact, no, that's where we picked up on watching the action there.
Yeah.
As the two cars in second and third place there. That was frighteningly close. That car stuck on a blind apex there. That's a change of underwear.
I think that might have been Zahid Essa who had that brown underwear moment. Also, to go back to your point on Sully Vasquez Rodriguez, I think that is just an early pit stop for the 199 number 2 Volante Racing car. So they were in the battle with Ben McConnell, more commonly known as Raggy. So we'll see where they come out once Raggy makes his pit stop, because that is a battle in the championship as well that is happening for essentially P6. Volante in P6, Rise at P7, R&E Team Red in P8.
So 54 minutes left to go in this race then. Fascinating battle, but here is your top 10 as it stands right now. BS+ Competition in the lead of this race, 2.6 seconds. That gap is still going up. 39 in second place. That is going to be the Yas Heat machine in second place. You've then got Kyrgyz Caracas in third in that Volante Racing number 1 machine. Fourth place for Zahir Essa in the number 75 Yas Heat GTWR machine, and then it's Victor Nikolai in the number 31 West Competition Racing machine in fifth. In the 790 in sixth position, in the 790, that is going to be Gregor Simeon, and then Felix Diepers in the 99 in 7th. It's then Christopher Streppen in the 991 in 8th position, Joe Scher in the number 72 in 9th, and then, as you said, Ben McConnell in the 125 McLaren down there in 10th position. I believe we've got another replay here, so let's see what we can bring up on our magic screen here. Just
we-
right, okay, my mistake. I heard the word replay from production team, and I immediately sprang into action, stalling and thinking, right, we've got a replay. But it turns out that they were just letting me know that they didn't have it. So thank you very much for letting me know that one, guys. Apologies about that one. Right, so the lead of the race, Arthur Kammerer, BS Plus competition, 2.7 seconds up the road. Jaroslav Honzik in second place. Now, the question is, what can Caracas do? Does he want to do anything about this, do you think, Yousuf, right now?
I think we're in a situation where when Caracas is ahead, he's slower than Honzik, or I should say Honzik is faster, and when it's this way around, Caracas is the one who looks quicker. I think it's just a case of whoever's in front will be getting hunted down, and it's easier for the driver behind to just sit in the tow and gain a bit of speed, because this isn't like Formula One where you've got dirty air. Maybe there's a little bit, but it's practically negligible compared to the amount of slipstream you can get on two very long straights here at Mount Panorama. So for Caracas, I think just sit behind, work together. You're pulling away from the likes of Zahir Essa and Victor Nikolai, and maybe things come your way in the second half of this race. Also, to go back to the 119 or the 199, I should say, because the 119 is not a car that is racing. The 199 of the number 2 Volante Racing car, that was a pit stop for damage, because it is still Sally Vasquez Rodriguez at the wheel of the cars. They have not switched over to Lucas Stidl, so they still have a driver swap to make.
I'm going to give you a bombshell. That 89 of Arthur Kammerer has made a mistake ahead of Jaroslav Honzik, because remember, that gap was 2.7 seconds. That gap is now 2.2 seconds, and there's no car anywhere near Arthur Kammerer right now, so that is half a second that has been lost by itself on that BMW. So that's a little bit spicy. Maybe it'll even itself out as it goes around the rest of the track there, but that's a lot of time to lose out on a mistake on one lap there, Yousuf.
I'd actually go the opposite way here, David. I'd say he's very lucky that he made a mistake at Bathurst and only lost half a second from it. So
only lost half a second and not a wheel.
Exactly. I think he's come out rather fortunately from whatever incident he's had. But here's the thing, Jaroslav Honzik would have seen that mistake. He'd see that the BMW is visually closer to him, and I reckon that's going to spur Honzik on a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of this lap that gap is down to 2.0 or even down to 1.9 seconds. And, well, to be honest, Honzik has already started to pull a bit of a gap to Caracas.
Actually, here's the point. Now, is that a mistake from Arthur Kammerer? Because obviously we've not seen anything. I'm just going on the time difference and the fact that it's coming down. Is that potentially Kammerer trying to ease off the fuel and try and squeeze out another lap or two out of that car and maybe change the strategy up a little bit here?
I don't think you need to fuel save that much. I mean, if you have to pit one lap earlier, it's not a huge issue. When you're talking about endurance at the likes of Le Mans, that's a big thing, because one lap is so incredibly long that you need to ensure that you get the most out of your fuel tank. But I think here, I don't think that's as much of an issue. Half a second, I think, was a bit of a mistake somewhere, either running a bit deep into Forest Elbow, maybe making a similar mistake to what we saw from Caracas before. But Kammerer, contrary to what I thought, is back on the pace and has extended his gap up to 2.3 seconds. As they come across the line, it's back down to 2.2, so it has stabilized.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts right now as we see the 991 of Christopher Streppen into the pits then for P2 Simsport. He'll be handing over the car to Klaus Neiring for the final stint. This, I would imagine, if we're going halfway through the race, is going to be the final lap for a lot of these drivers as they head into pit lane and do some driver swaps then. As we were watching Grantas Caracas there in the number 14, still just holding on to the back end of that number 39 of Jaroslav Honzik. I think saving a little bit of fuel, saving a little bit of time as well, and just keeping the pressure on where we can. We see Klaus Neiring there in the 991 jumping out of pits there in our picture-in-picture. Huge thank you to our production team, as always, here at GT Omega for bringing the awesome pictures and sound that you are watching tonight. A lot of shout out for the number 72 right now of Joel Scher for Rev Sport. They are doing a fairly grand job there, and again, you know, given how popular the team are, we do have to give them a little bit of attention as the 323 into the pits yet again there. But that BMW, I mean, at the tail end, granted, of the 5 BMWs that we've got here, but great pace from the start there, and holding on to a rather respectable top 10 finish.
Yeah. Also, keep an eye for when Cher makes his pit stop, because it was the 991, now piloted by Nyring, who was right on their tail. So we could see a switch from the pit stop, the strategies. So we'll keep an eye out for that as well. Voitner in the 116 car, 5.5 seconds behind Ben McConnell. Again, those two have been close to each other all season long. Currently sitting in, let me just double check that, in P8 and P7 in the championship.
Still lots to decide, and we're obviously focused on, ooh, that's a little bit scary from Jardier there. We're focused on the top tier of the championship as well, but you know, when you look down anywhere in the top 10, there's so many different positions that could be going gone in the next 3 races here, or the final 3 races, including Bathurst here tonight, that realistically we just don't know. Is the 199 into pits again? No Sully. Oh, so no Sully Vasquez Rodriguez has come into the pits. He's not done the driver change. So obviously that maybe was for damage earlier on there.
Yes. Yeah, because before I thought that it was a pit stop, an actual pit stop, but then we saw that it was the same driver in, so we assumed that it was pit stop for damage. We'll see whether Lucas Sidor jumps behind the wheel of that 199 car, but either way, not how the number 2 Volante Racing car would have wanted their day to be going, especially considering how well they were doing as well. They were hunting around that top 10 areas. We've got more pit stops that are coming through, the number 70 and the 116, both into the pits.
Just having a look as well, obviously with this GTA Mega Challenger Cup, it's not just the bragging rights of winning the championship. There is a massive prize pool behind the scenes from the wonderful guys at both GTA Mega and at Moza as well. First place gets £1,000, a Moza wheelbase and pedal setup, which is ridiculous. I mean, see, I swear to goodness, see if they end up walking away with like the R21, which, yeah, I'm going to be thoroughly jealous if that is the case. There goes Jardier into the pits there as Grantas Caracas stays out into the second place then, as is your race leader Artur Camera. So they get the Moza wheelbase and pedal setup, and they also get a GTA Mega Prime cockpit and seat as well. I mean, that is a hefty bundle, and I'd quite fancy getting that myself, Yousuf. What about you?
I'd definitely like to get at the very least the what do you call it? The rig, the Prime cockpit. That's what
I'll tell you what, right? I'll give you my old one, right? I'll win a brand new Prime rig, and you can have my old one, and then
I'm more than down
happy.
for that. Yeah, I'd be thrown to bits. I mean, not only would I have a Prime cockpit, but I'd also have Davy Christie, actual Citroen C1 racing drive sim rig as well. So
you've got to remember to put the air quotes in when you put the start and end of that one.
Yeah. Driver, there we go.
That's a really sort of lenient use of the word racing driver there, but yeah, it's honestly, I mean, we said this last week. We were speaking about the rig that I've got, and more so, I mean, obviously it's getting on a little bit my rig, but the thing is, it's still absolutely rock solid, and the guys were shocked when I told them about the rig that I've got, because they're like, that is so old. But again, a testament to the quality of the products that they've got, the fact that, you know, you're going to put this investment in, and people are, you know, let's not forget, people are spending thousands and thousands of pounds here. You don't want something that's going to fall apart after about 6 months here. See chairs, right? The amount of chairs I've went through in my home office here. I didn't think that I was that hefty a guy, but it turns out I am, Yousuf, and I've went through plenty of them. So on that side of things, I know exactly what it feels like to have something and then have it fall apart months later. It's horrible, horrible stuff. As Grantas Caracas comes into pit lane, we've got a yellow flag here that has been resumed there. That's the 3-2-3 again, and that is Prescott that has brought that one out. He's got going again there. That looks like that's at the chase, and that is Felix Deepers there for Lutz Motorsport. Getting a little bit wide there.
Yeah, and then Deepers jumps on into the pits straight on after. To go back to your point on chairs, that's the issue when you've got fabric. It's why, if you want to put money into sim rigs, it's a smart thing to do, because it's essentially just a big frame of metal. And there's not much that can really go wrong with metal. Because as long as you keep it painted, it won't even rust.
You see, you say that, and my previous cars are looking
Oh,
at
no.
you like, wait, what?
Okay, but a car is more than just metal. It has a soul, David.
No, I
No.
refuse to. I
What
refuse
have
to
you
believe
done to
that
your car?
they're a utilitarian. That's all they're there for. Although, to be fair, that was a bit sketchy, was it? Goodness me,
Yeah.
as Victor Nicolai all
Blue
over the
flag.
back.
Blue flag.
Go and do that again.
Your blue flag. Blue flag. Move out of the way. Blue flag. Guido Zito is not obeying blue flags, and he's holding up Victor Nicolai all throughout the S's, down to the dipper, through Forest Elbow as well. And that is really not what the 31 needed.
Yeah, but that's GT3 racing. The blue flag is simply an advisory to say that there's a faster car approaching. It's up to the faster car
Is
to make
it?
his way. Yeah. So
I thought that was only
now,
for
see,
endurance.
that is actually brilliant, because that is it's a common misunderstanding, because a lot of people get the rules off of, say, like F1, where the blue flag means you have to pass, like, if you have to let the car behind you through in 3 blue flags, otherwise you get a penalty, as Arthur Kammerer, our race leader, is into the pits. With every other form of motor racing, including like the real life racing, GT3 racing, every other format doesn't work like that. The blue flag, same with like yellow flags. The blue flag is just an advisory. It's there to let you know, as a racing driver, there is a faster car approaching them. Do not block them. Do not fight them. It doesn't mean you have to let off the gas. It doesn't mean you have to let them through. It means, in fact, a lot of the racing drivers actually say that they prefer that. They say, you hold your line, I will make my way past you. That's the long and but you don't fight them. That's the key thing. So the problem being is that a lot of rookie drivers, myself included, are tempted to just, almost put on the brakes. And if you put on the brakes and the car behind isn't expecting that, that's when really, really bad things can happen. I've seen that time and time again with sim racing. And the thing is, a lot of these drivers, they'll come on, they've maybe watched a bit of F1 and they think, oh, blue flag means exactly that. You have to pull over and get out of the way. It doesn't. That's the key thing. Same with yellow flags. I was absolutely shocked to find that the yellow flag doesn't mean that you actually have to slow down. It means that you have to be aware that there is some sort of caution up ahead. Double waved yellows is when that really comes into effect. However, in sim racing, I would argue the opposite. I would say, for self-preservation, if there is a yellow flag, you need to be prepared to just really, really hammer on the anchors, because 9 times out of 10 there's a really bad accident that's up in front. But 40 minutes left to go. Let's get back to the race then, as Angus Fender gets behind the wheel of the number 89. Well, surely that's not right. That can't be a 6-second gap that's been taken out in the pit stops.
Seems so. Seems that BMW has a bit less fuel to put in. Remember, back at the Nürburgring as well, the BMW was able to extend its lead slightly over the McLarens. So I think BMWs just need a bit less fuel, so they spend a little bit less time stationary as well. Luke Whitehead, though, has the 31 of Sebastian Apostel right on his rear end, and I believe, so that's West Competition Racing. They were relatively close to the 75 back when it was Victor Nicolai who was at the wheel of the car. But I think Zahir Essa had been able to stretch a gap of 1 second and something. So I think it's another case of the BMW just gaining time through the pit window.
Yeah, very, very well could be. It's 40 minutes left to go. This is what it all comes down to now. Angus Fender in the lead of the race there from Jonathan Riley in second place. That gap come down very, very slightly. Krzysztof Muskowski in third position in the number 39 machine. Luke Whitehead in the 75 in that fourth position as well. So again, realistically, I mean, Angus Fender here, he's now just got to kind of manage the gap.
Absolutely. A large gap, a 6-second gap at that. Let's see, though, if Jonathan Riley's even quicker than Grantes Carecas, because we've had the first pair of drivers in, and, well, it was relatively close, but it still was Arta Camera who had that little bit of a pace advantage over Grantes Carecas. That might all change, though, with Angus Fender and Jonathan Riley.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep our eye on that one, but just looking at that gap stretching out there from Fender on Riley now. The other thing as well is that 14 has kind of stretched the gap over Muskowski in the 39 as well. So realistically, I mean, it does look like this is how it's going to finish, because all of the gaps are well over about a second and a half here.
Absolutely. I mean, we've still got over half an hour to go. A lot of things can change, but barring any big issues, you'd have to think that it will end as things currently stand. Maybe Sebastian Apostle can close in onto Luke Whitehead, but judging from the pace that we saw from Luke Whitehead at the Nürburgring, I actually reckon that it's going to be Whitehead who closes into the 39, and then we'll have a similar situation where Yas Heat gives the good old team orders to get the GWTR car through. But then again, when you think about the prize money, I'd actually say to have it the other way around, because it's the Yas Heat community car that could be finding themselves in third in the championship if they absolutely nail their upcoming races. So I'd say the GWTR car pretty much has second in the bag. Help the community car as much as you can.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Whether or not that actually happens, we'll have to wait and see, as we still see Krzysztof Muskowski here. We move to Luke Whitehead here. This is coming up the mountain straight then. And Sebastian Apostle in that 31 BMW, just 1.7 seconds. That gap coming down very, very slightly, but not enough to concern Luke Whitehead's ahead. So the West Competition racing car making his way up through turn number 2. But the other thing as well is that realistically, I think a lot of the drivers would be happy to have this race settle down and just get it out the way, because 35 minutes left to go. There's not an awful lot of meat left on the table in terms of points, in terms of positions. I see a lot of the drivers just quite happy to sort of meander around the track here.
See, I'd be tempted to agree, but this is racing drivers we're talking about, and when do racing drivers not want to get extra track time?
That's very true. I rescind my previous point then. No, but I mean, in all realistic terms though, right? We're watching all of these gaps go up and up and up. You know, if you think, so let's see, for example, Sebastian Apostle, right? He's, 1.2 seconds behind Luke Whitehead right now. So that means that over the next 35 minutes, he's got to keep chipping away 1, 2, 3 tenths of a second just to catch up to Luke Whitehead. And then that means that he's also got to try and get past Luke Whitehead, which means that he's going to be in extra danger, of the two of them coming in collision there. Whereas realistically, he's a million miles ahead of the 790 that is just behind him. That is, of course, the 790 of McLear that is just behind him. But
Valentin Barriers brought out a yellow flag. That is the 116, was running in P9. And that's
at Skyline, the Dipper.
Yeah, that's a Jardier community car that's currently sitting third in the championship as well. Maybe not for much longer with the Volante Racing car currently sitting in P2. So I think we're going to have a switch around now for third in the championship.
Yeah, could do. I bet that's a carbon copy of what we saw from that 91 car earlier on in the race there, spinning at the top of Skyline here as we see. This is Robin Hulaman in the RNE Endurance Machine. Just about to get lapped by, I believe that is Muskowski in the 39. But let's have a look at
Riley,
the
I think.
replay then of what exactly happened at that instant then. So this looks like, yep, coming through McPhillamy Park then. This is on the entrance to the dipper. So is it just on the, yeah, it gets a little bit of curb on the left-hand side there. That's a heavy, heavy hit onto that wall there, right on the front as well.
Maybe, I think it was a bit of product placement because the way he was spun, any of the other cars that came down, they'd just be able to see Jardier's face plastered on the side of the car. So I think that's what the Jardier community team was going for there.
Get a little bit of publicity in there, yeah.
Exactly.
The 116.
It's like in Formula One back in the old days, when you'd always get the lower end. I mean, you still get it now, but it used to be a lot more 10 years ago, when the lower end teams would come out of the pit straight away to get some extra TV time for their sponsors.
Yeah, just try and keep in with the car that was being observed.
Absolutely. Well, Angus Fender is absolutely flying. 7-second gap to Jonathan Riley. I'm scared to think what kind of lap time Angus Fender could have done in qualifying, because I'm pretty sure the pole time was set by Arctic Camera, but here in the race, Angus Fender is phenomenal. Jonathan Riley just doesn't seem to be getting to grips with the McLaren here at Mount Panorama, and the same can be said for Maczkowski as well. I don't know if it's Matkowski or Maczkowski. I think CZ in Polish is a ch sound, so I'll go with Maczkowski for now. But the gap between those two is staying at just under 4 seconds, so actually increasing. So yeah, it's as you mentioned before, David, the top three just spreading further and further apart.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and like I said, I mean, it comes to this point in the race, you're now just counting down the laps there. Luke Whitehead is catching up onto the back of Krzysztof Muskowski by about half a second from last time we checked there. But the issue with that is that, remember, Jonathan Riley actually, for the Volante Racing machine, that is a huge spanner in the works for that number 39 machine, because Yas Heat community, they really needed some really good points from tonight to kind of stick with it. When in fact it's the Yas Heat GTWR car, the number 75, that needs to get past it. So you were mentioning about team strategy. I don't know, because yes, they're sister teams, but they're still fighting for the championship. The community car doesn't really have that much to what was the way to say there? That much to fight for. But in all intents and purposes, given the strong charge that they've had, they've got everything to fight for right now. So it could be, we're waiting to see a move being made here. But I've seen this happen before, and I've also seen this go terribly wrong. But it could just be a swap over at the mountain straight here.
Yeah, Maczkowski just is completely off the pace. He's lost nearly a second to Jonathan Riley on that last lap. So I don't know what's going on for Maczkowski right now, but he's not able to match the pace of Jardier from half an hour ago. I know the track has got a little bit cooler, but they shouldn't be making any significant changes to lap time. So Luke Whitehead, though, I think if he gets past Maczkowski, he can close in onto Jonathan Riley, although it will take a fair amount of time. So I'm surprised Maczkowski didn't pull over on the mountain straight, but maybe now he'll move out of the way of Luke Whitehead. Doesn't seem so.
No, I think no is the fair answer to that. There was a look up the inside from Luke Whitehead there, but no, there definitely isn't any team orders here, otherwise that would have been done. And what they're going to have to watch out now is the more they fight, Sebastian Apostle just 3 seconds behind there, so be very interesting to see. I just have a horrible gut feeling this is going to end up with contact here for one of these cars here. The issue for me though is that Jardier community car of the 116, the Valentin Barrier, 13th position. For me, that is it. That position right there, that is them out of the championship hunt now, if that's where they finish. And as long as Whitehead can get past here, I think it's still game on for the final 2 rounds. But if it stays in 4th place, I think we're looking at a done deal here. And God forbid there's any sort of contact there as it goes round the outside. A little bit of contact there, a little bit of nudge there. Tries to get on the inside at the chase there. Whitehead gets the position. Now, the question is Mikowski going to try and fight back? I think he might do. It's going to be down into Murray's corner here. But yeah, it looks like that might be done and dusted for that one. So Whitehead does get ahead, and crucially, that brings the gap now to 25 points between 1st and 3rd place there, out of this this 3rd to last round of the championship. So yes, there's damage done, but not as much damage as it would have been in that 4th position.
Another question is, can Luke Whitehead close in onto Jonathan Riley? I tell you what, Jonathan Riley has taken 6 tenths out of Angus Fender on the last lap because it was at 7 seconds. It's now down to 6.4. So I wonder if Angus Fender made a mistake. Let's see if Luke Whitehead can close in the 5.9 seconds to Jonathan Riley. So it was 5.9 at the start of the lap, and it's up to 6.1. So right now, Luke Whitehead not closing in, but still a while to go yet in this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't look for that gap to come down too much. I think it's too late in the race now. 25 minutes left to go. The pace that Mikowski had got or was losing over Jonathan Riley, I don't think was enough to justify that through the closing stages of the race. I think Whitehead may start to make some inroads here. His main concern is just getting rid of Mikowski behind him. But I mean, realistically, with it being what's that, about maybe 10 laps left, maybe 12 laps left to go, that would have to be about half a lap for the remaining couple of laps to catch up to the back of him. I can't see that happening, but again, we'll wait with bated breath to see what the gaps are going to do here. Bear in mind that Jonathan Riley does have a little bit of traffic there. So, all right, okay, so the gap coming down very, very slightly there. We'll keep our eye open. I might be left with some egg on my face there. So the number 60 brings that yellow flag there. That's Slanner there at the back there. The number 99 has went hard into Forrest's elbow. Is Otten in that BMW there. So it's all starting to go a little bit wrong here.
I tell you what we need right now, David. A safety car. That would make things exciting. Sadly, no.
I've got PTSD with safety cars here at Bathurst and Simracing. Remember, well, obviously it's pretty much impossible to have them here in ACC. Yeah. But in R Factor 2, I remember there was a league race that was commentating on, and the safety car driver actually binned it coming out of the pits, which was, I mean, me trying to be the consummate professional that I was, I just lost it. I was buckled over laughing, because this guy took his role very, very seriously indeed, and yeah, it was just, I know it wasn't just like an oopsie, it was like a full-on straight into the wall coming out of the pit lane. You're like, yep, that's quite impressive. We might have a replay actually of that, presuming that would be the 99 of Otten down there in 8th position. So let's have a look at that if we can. Oh, that is it's actually the 60 of Slanner that brought out the yellow flag there. So this is down into the chase then, on the brakes. Is it a little bit of wheels on the grass? No, just locks up the brakes there. Tail end goes, tries to hold on to it, and yeah, that's. I mean, thankfully that's a relatively pain-free and probably one of the simplest accidents that you can have here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just trying to throw the car in, you've got to be absolutely committed into the chase. And the rear end got a light on him. He tried to correct it, and he ended up going wide into the grass, into, I guess you could call it a semi-spin. However, Sebastian Apostle is closing in on to Maciekowski, which you can see on your screen. Apostle in that green and blue BMW. Maciekowski in the white or silver and red McLaren in front, and that gap has been tumbling down. So this is really not what the Yas Heat community car needed after what was a fantastic opening stint from Jardier.
Absolutely. 23 minutes left to go in this GT Omega Challenger Cup. The third to last round here at Bathurst, and what a entertaining race we've had nonetheless. And one of the things I'm actually concerned about now is watching Miskowski and Apostle. That gap coming down. I'm hearing we've got another replay here. So I'm going to safely presume this time that that is the number 99 of Orton. This is going to be difficult to watch here. This is going to be down into Forest Elbow there. You see a little bit of a graze on the right hand rear there. Too much pace. The car clips, and yeah, that's good luck recovering that car. That is going to be a very, very difficult 3-point turn for the car. Ouch. That's a bump. I think there's going to be at least 3 more points of contact here. Oh my God, the car has to come round. Thankfully, actually keeps it out the wall there and saves his ego. Were it not for our amazing production team pulling up that replay there and us being able to enjoy that one.
Yeah, it's the driver's worst nightmare, the replay of their incidents, where we get to remind them of how silly they have been. And it's one of the pains when you drive here at Bathurst, if you make a mistake. Obviously, I've never experienced that because I've never made a mistake while driving at Bathurst. Is if you do make a mistake, it's really hard to get that car pointed in the right direction because it is narrow, there's walls on either side, and you do have to quite literally go back to your driving lessons for the road and remember how to do that 3-point turn.
No, don't lie. The instinct's there, isn't it, Yousuf, to turn your head round and have a look over your shoulder when you're firing the car into reverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do it all the time, and I'm in VR as well. It's even more difficult, especially in these GT3 cars, because there's very little that you can see actually out of the rear window. And on that note, I actually got a little taste this weekend of what it feels like to be commentated on. I was down at Milton Keynes for the RaceSpot VCO Sim Racing Summit, and they did a couple of exhibition competition races down there, and I'd entered myself in for a couple of them. And it was the Porsches first up, and I was absolutely woeful. And the BMWs that was at Donington, I got absolutely destroyed by one of the cars coming down through the Craner curves. It wasn't my fault. I was raging, and of course I'm watching the replay back of it, and it really is quite something hearing your own name getting mentioned in the middle of a battle, but it doesn't make it any easier when there's a bit of an accident or a mistake. It just kind of rubs salt in the wounds a little bit.
See, I've been very lucky when I've been fortunate enough to be commentated on, at least for the IRL karting stuff I've done. I've always been in a somewhat positive light. Mainly because whenever I've had incidents, it hasn't been caught on camera, and karting races don't have the benefits of being able to pull up replays to show to the commentators. So I always end up getting praises, I don't know. Just whenever the camera's on me, I seem to do rather well.
Yeah, that's pretty much the opposite of me, really, and yeah, well,
it's the opposite of me as well when I try to smile for a picture, but then I'm absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's well, I'm not saying anything on that. We got plenty of decent pictures of you smiling for them.
Yeah, I mean the picture that we get sometimes appearing on the screen of both of us, that's a decent picture of me. I was actually going to say at the start of the show, it's I think it's caught both of us in relatively good light.
Takes a lot of Photoshop work for that to happen, I tell you. But by the by, final 20 minutes left to go of this race. Now, the gap between your leader and second place actually starting to come down very slightly, but that is, I believe, because we've got traffic that is being negotiated, and also, if I'm being honest, I think Angus Fender may be just managing that gap a little bit there. He's just holding on to the car and holding on to the pace that he's got.
I tell you what, he's managing that gap as if he's managing a shot, because the gaps are on a discount right now and they're coming down thick and fast. There was a better way to do that joke, but I couldn't figure out how, so we'll go with that, because 4.4 seconds between them now, and there aren't any back markers between the 89 and 14. Angus Fender. Okay, either Angus Fender is making mistakes, or Jonathan Riley
Okay.
has riled himself up and is driving like a man possessed. So Angus Fender last time round, a 2:02.6. If we could just go back to Jonathan Riley to see what time he did on his last lap. 2:02. Okay, something's not adding up here.
Hang on, that's the last lap. That's not this lap. So it could be this lap that Angus
Okay.
Fender has lost all of that pace on. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that gap has gone from, what, 5 point... No, it was 6 seconds. Let's face it. It was 6 seconds up the road, then to 5, now 4.5 seconds. Yeah, something's not quite... Do you know what it could be? Remember that Fender came out 6 seconds ahead of Riley and Whitehead. It was significantly faster than the rest of them. Yes, they had to take less fuel. I wonder if they're double stinting their tyres.
I was going to say, do you think they've killed their tyres? But double stint... The thing is, if it was double stinting their tyres, I feel like when they came out of the pits, they wouldn't have had the same pace compared to Riley and Whitehead on fresh tyres, surely?
I'm not sure. I think the problem is, I mean, at this point in time, we're speculating. That's all
Yes.
we can do is we're trying to figure out.
We do a lot
it's
of
like,
that. Oh, that's
a lot of it is trying to inject anticipation. It's like, oh, the gap's come down by 1.5 seconds. Oh my God, we've got a race for the lead, and then it goes up to 10 seconds. You're like, oh, right, okay then. But anyway, Krzysztof Moskowski right onto the back of Luke Whitehead. Oh no, sorry, this is Sebastian Apostle. Excuse me, I was getting all excited for nothing there because Sebastian Apostle now onto the back of the number 39 here. And that BMW looking mighty impatient, trying to get past here. You're never going to make a look up the inside of the cutting, but just to make an absolute liar out of me, Moskowski has a little bit of a wobble onto the brakes there and allows that BMW to get up on the inside. I'm pretty sure that BMW caught the right hand of that wall as they come through McPhillamy Park here on the left-hand side here. Again, it's going to have to be out onto the Conrod Straight. That's where Apostle is going to be able to make his time. It does look like Fender managing that gap now. 4.5 seconds still left to go at 60 minutes left in the race. He's got the number 70 just in front of him just now. That is Wojciech Dvorak right now. But here comes the BMW. What can Sebastian Apostle do coming out of Forest Elbow? Again, the McLaren has incredible pace coming out of that corner here, but the BMW has got it firmly in its sights just now, coming down through towards the chase then, and I don't think it's got enough here.
Yeah, it's the issue with the BMW, it just does not have the straight line speed. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen a BMW overtake anyone so far this race at Mount Panorama, and despite the mistake that we saw from Tchaikovsky coming out of turn 1, we saw Apostle closing in and then just stop closing in because the BMW does not have the speed. It does not have the top end to be able to close in onto the McLaren. So the only way Apostle finds a way through is if there is a mistake from Tchaikovsky, either here in Hell Corner or coming through Forest Elbow at the top of the circuit.
Yeah, for sure. So, as we said, final 15 minutes of the race here. It does look fairly steady at the front. He's already dispatched Wojciech Dvorak there in the 11th place, number 70 car. So, Angus Fender leads Jonathan Riley from Luke Whitehead. Krzysztof Moskowski in 4th place. This is the battle we're watching right now. Sebastian Apostle in that number 31 BMW, still right on the back of that car in front. And this is so important for them. The 39 really can't afford to go another position down there, but that 31 definitely wants to try and make this happen here. And with what, about 7 laps left to go here, you wouldn't think that this is out the realms of possibility here, Yousuf.
I think Apostle has to somehow, he has to miraculously make a way through in this section of the track. He has to maybe try to do it into the cutting. If he can get a good run coming through Griffin's Mount, he can challenge, but he has to put pressure on Tchaikovsky in the S's in this tight and twisty section to try to get a run somewhere, maybe have a send down into Forest Elbow, because as we've mentioned before, the BMW does not have the straight line speed. We've seen mistakes from drivers before, namely it was, I believe it was Jonathan Riley's teammate, I think it was Carecas, who touched the inside wall through Forest Elbow and actually cost himself some time.
Yeah, Grantas Caracas it was that got caught up in that one, but yeah, it's thankfully gotten to get away with it and sort of move on. Is that BMW getting scary close to the back of Krzysztof Mieszkowski right now? 37 laps in the book. That gap to first place and second place down to 4.1 seconds. So it is coming down very slightly as we see Prescott in the 323 into the pits yet again here. I wonder if we've got a little bit of a sting in the tail left in this race right now, because Riley now behind Wojciech Dvorak. He's going to get a handy little bit of tow coming up the mountain straight here. And are we going to see anything from Sebastian Apostel?
Again, seeing on that straight, the BMW can't close in to the McLaren. And I don't know what to say, David, because there's no other real overtaking opportunities. You mentioned before how there are two main overtaking spots on the circuit, down into the Chase and through Griffin's Mount, which we just passed, and they're at the end of long straights, which the BMW can't take advantage of. And here in the twisty section, this is where we see the BMW closing in onto the McLaren.
Yeah, fascinating battle going on, and you know, with 13 minutes left to go here, it's a weird one, because this looks like it's the only battle that is there on track between Apostel and Mieszkowski. Every other car separated by a number of seconds, but the problem is that the more that gap comes down between Fender and Riley, the more pressure I think that Fender's going to feel under from that car that's behind him, especially coming down the Conrod Straight here, where we get the timing beam tripped again. I think the time will have maybe gone up a little bit there. Yep, 4.5 seconds, so a little bit of breathing space there, but 12 minutes left to go in this race, and I think that Apostel is going to get very frustrated very shortly with this McLaren and try and make a move. In fact, have a look at this on the back of the McLaren right now, going through in towards the Chase. What's going to happen with the BMW? Late on the brakes again, looking at wiggling, trying to get that car stopped there, gets it done, but compromises the exit line from the BMW there. They're going to come down through Murray's Corner. Beautiful sight of that Liqui bridge there, and that is getting a little bit too close for comfort, Yousuf.
Absolutely, and we're seeing Apostel getting closer, but it's still not quite close enough. And look how close he gets to the rear end of the McLaren through turn one. That's the closest he has been all race to the rear end of Mieszkowski. And honestly, if he can't get past through here, he'll never get past the McLaren unless Mieszkowski makes a mistake.
Well, let's see what is going to happen, because jinking from one side to the left, then McLaren just holds on off Mieszkowski. Apostel still looking very determined to try and get past. You've got to say that. I mean, he's wanting to get past, but he's not forcing the issue here. He's not making anything reckless. He's not making anything trying to you know, be dangerous with anything here. He just wants to try and get that position. So that is, you know, it is great to see that. You've got to say the fact that they can race hard but race fair.
Now that's Klaus Nyring up ahead. If these two can close in onto him through the S's, that's going to give Sebastian Apostel a big opportunity to find a way through on the McLaren. Maybe using the back markers to his advantage is his golden ticket to P4.
It could very well be. That's what we're going to have to keep an eye out for. Meanwhile, your race leader now. Okay, that gap is now 3.7 seconds. That's coming down about half a second from where it was before. I'm a little bit confused by that. And the gap to Luke Whitehead as well, that's coming down. That was 5 seconds. So are we seeing everything starting to squeeze up here as the track begins to cool now? It's 30 degrees Celsius. It was 32 at the beginning of the race. The BMW late on the brakes again of Sebastian Apostel, trying to get right onto the back there of Krzysztof Mieszkowski for the battle for 4th place there. Still not going to happen. We go on to lap number 39 here. Under 10 minutes left to go. That gap now 3.6 seconds. If you're Jonathan Riley, Yousuf, you are absolutely rubbing your hands with glee right now.
Yeah, you can see that gap coming down. You can also see Luke Whitehead closing in. I just feel that there's not enough time in the race, as once again Sebastian Apostel gets a good look at that McLaren. It just shoots off coming off the corner. It's almost like there's a boost pad that just sends it off into the distance coming out of Hell Corner. But look at that 991 of Klaus Nyring. No, it moves out of the way. But I say no. It's no for Sebastian Apostel. It's thank God for Mieszkowski.
Yeah, I think he'll be breathing a sigh of relief after that one. Brilliant, brilliant to see here. But that BMW getting frustrated at every single opportunity right now, as he's only got about 4 laps in which he can try and realistically get his way past this McLaren here. Looking further down the order though, it does look like it's been a strong showing for the BMWs yet again. 5 BMWs in the top 10 and 4 McLarens in the top 10 as well. So again, look at how close now. That BMW really harassing that McLaren. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle there. It was early on the brakes there for Moskowski. The BMW caught out by that one, and then Patience starting to sneak in here. That's going to affect that car going down the hill here. And again, I'm wondering now if this is the McLaren starting to get a little bit rattled here. Great exit out of Force Elbow, but I still think that BMW is not doesn't have the grunt to get past here.
You know, sometimes we say you've thrown the kitchen sink at someone. Well, right now, Sebastian Apostle has thrown the entire garage at Moskowski. He's trying to find every single spanner he has, and he's thrown it in the direction of the McLaren. But Moskowski, credit to him, has not put a foot wrong in these last 5 minutes or so, and he continues to hold the BMW at bay.
Yeah, certainly is. Brilliant, brilliant stuff though. And just watching how this is all going to unfold. Again, the gap stabilising at the front, 3.7 seconds. But if you ask me, that gap on the minimap looks like it's much, much closer than 3.7 seconds. That looks like it's down to about 2.5 to maybe 3 seconds between the two of them. We'll get an update as they come across the line very, very shortly for the first timing split. But anyway, I mean, Sebastian Apostle, that gap now 0.7 of a second. Big gap started to open up between them. And, well, I mean, championship-wise, this is fairly significant. But the fact that Jonathan Riley in that second place instead of Luke Whitehead in that 75, I think that is what the Yas Heat team, they're going to be scratching their heads tonight.
I think Moskowski is just going to be upset with himself after this one. He just hasn't had the pace. And, I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's no nice way to put it, because Jardier done a really good job, and maybe Moskowski just didn't have the amount of prep time. Maybe the setup was tuned more towards Jardier than it was to Moskowski. We don't know. Again, as we mentioned, it is all speculation. P4 is not a bad result. It would be their first time off the podium this season. They joined back in Donington, third round of the championship. P3, then the second race at Spa, they won P3 last time out at the Nürburgring, so off the podium this time round is not where they'd want to be, but it's still a decent result, and there's a lot of positives that they can take from this heading into Misano next week.
They certainly can, and the race coming to its natural conclusion here. A huge thank you to everyone that has been watching us on the official GT and Mega Twitch stream. As always, it would be super helpful. It would be very much appreciated by us if you want to hit that follow button and subscribe to us here on Twitch as well. Yeah, we'd very much like that. But 2 races still to go. That's what we have to turn our attention now to, is we've literally got just 2 more outings for this championship after tonight. We head from Bathurst, we go to Misano, and then we go to Silverstone. What do we think we're going to be expecting there?
I think Misano, you've got, I wouldn't say it's got less overtaking opportunities than Silverstone, but you do still have overtaking spots. I think Silverstone is wide open in that regard. But I think we should see more battling akin to what we saw last time at Nürburgring and Spa. Mount Panorama is a lovely circuit, but it is a bit of a street course in essence here at the top end of the circuit. At the bottom of the circuit, it's fine, and while it is absolutely spectacular to see cars hurtling through the S's, through the dipper, you don't get to see a lot of battling, and that's what we're seeing right here. We can see the BMW on the rear end of the McLaren, but it just can't find a way through. And I think at Silverstone and Misano, the BMWs will have a less of an issue.
Well, let's keep an eye on what is going to happen for the remainder of the race tonight. The gap between first and second place down to 3 seconds. That's, yeah, again, I think it is just Angus Fender just managing the gap now, just holding on to that position here as Sebastian Apostle flashing the lights on the BMW as we're plunging into darkness here at Mount Panorama, here at Bathurst, 8:30. It is virtually in game time tonight, and the BMW of Sebastian Apostle in 5th place, trying desperately to get past the McLaren in front. And have a look at that. That was a mistake from Krzysztof Muskowski. The car getting slid out to the exit of that curb through the chase there, and that maybe shows a little bit of the pressure that car is getting put under just now. The gap under 3 seconds now for the first time in a very, very long time between Angus Fender and Jonathan Riley here. The gap here between Mikowski and Apostle under 0.5 of a second here. So realistically, this I think is going to be our penultimate lap here. We will start the final lap in just 2 minutes time.
Maybe if there were 5 more minutes in this race, Jonathan Riley could have a go, but he's just too far back, and as a result we just have to focus on Sebastian Apostle and whether he can challenge Machkowski for that P4 spot. And for the 31 car as well, we haven't spoken a lot about them and their championship currently. West Competition Racing missing out in the first round of the championship, or at least not scoring any points, and since then they've had some decent results. They've had a P2 at Kyalami, then they've had a P5, a P4. Nürburgring didn't go well for them, so this would be a return to form for them if they could get that P4 spot.
Well, let's keep an eye and see if that is what happens. As we came into this round, remember, it was BS Plus competition in the lead of the championship with 720 points. It was Yas Heat GTWR who were 57 points behind them in second place in 663, and then it was the 506, the Jardier Community Car on 506 points that were in third position. Those positions won't change, I believe, from the outcomes of tonight's race, but it certainly sets things up for the final race. But your race leader coming through the final corner to start the final lap of the race, then Angus Fender crosses the line with 1:10 left to go. Jonathan Riley still in that second place. The gap still 2.9 seconds, and this, you would imagine, is going to be a very, very happy Angus Fender going across the line here, as we're still going picture in picture. You can see the bottom right, that is your race leader, and in the main picture here you can see Krzysztof Muskowski and Sebastian Apostle. So a brilliant race, actually, we've got to say. 15 cars we're going to get finishing this this third to last race of the season, and it's been quite quiet for the final sort of half of the race.
Sorry to jump across you there, David, but look at Klaus Neiring. He's half a second behind Wojtek Dworek, so he's been closing in. And might we see a battle on the final lap of this race?
We could very well do, actually. So the number 70, in fact, he's done it. He's already passed. The number 70 is ahead, from what I can see, of Zito in that. Of Dvorak right now. In fact, I tell a lie, sorry, it was Neiring you were on about, wasn't it? Yeah. So Neiring's still behind the number 70 right now. I will get there sort of eventually. It's just old age, what can I say? So we'll keep an eye on the 70 and the 991. They're still fighting it out just now. They're just a couple of seconds behind this battle here. But our race leader has come out of Forrest's elbow for the final time here. This, you can see here, is the battle for the BMW for Sebastian Apostle. Tries to get out of Forrest's elbow, though. I think Krzysztof Muskowski has done everything that he needs to do to hold on to this position. It's the run down the Conrad Straight. Does the BMW have the toe? Does the BMW have the grunt? I think the answer is going to be no, unless it's going to be a last gasp dive down for this fourth position. I can't see it happening, though. The BMW has a little look, but there you go. Your race leader, Angus Fender, for BS Plus competition, wins ahead of Jonathan Riley, 2.3 seconds. Your fourth and fifth place still coming down towards that final corner. Luke Whitehead takes third place, though. It's going to be Krzysztof Muskowski in fourth, Sebastian Apostle in fifth position there. And what a race, Yousuf.
And Klaus Neiring, Wojtek Dworek having contact down into the chase. I'm not quite sure who was at fault. but they were side by side. There was a little bit of a contact through the right kink, and that just sent someone having a tank slapper. The pair of them went sideways, and it's Klaus Neiring who picks up a 30-second penalty for it. So the steward instantly saying that one is on the blame of the 991.
Well, what I'm wondering actually, I'm wondering if that was through the chase, Neiring might have had to take to the grass. That could have been a track limits penalty, which then automatically gets converted to a 30-second time penalty. Let's have a look through here, though. Oh, a little bit of contact. And do you know what? That unfortunately was all on the 991 there, who clipped the curb on the inside. It was a racing incident. There was no malice or blame whatsoever on that. But unfortunately, 991 got onto the curb on the right-hand side there and just tried best to hold on to it, but ended up careening into that number 70.
Yeah, you could tell that it was the last lap of the race. He gave it absolutely everything. Held it a bit too tight. Car got unsettled. Tank slapper and Wojtek Dvorak was just a passenger at that point. Thankfully, though, for Dvorak, I don't think he lost any positions as a result of that incident, so he's fine. Although it's just an insult to injury for the P2 car. Remember, Verstappen had that pit stop at the start of... Oh, sorry, it wasn't... No, it was the 199 who had that extra pit stop. My bad, I take it back. Either way, a very good win for BS+ Competition.
Yeah, so huge congratulations then to Arthur Camera and Angus Fender taking the race win. Volante Racing #1 taking second place. Grantas Caracas and Jonathan Riley, and then Zahir Essa and Luke Whitehead for what was the GTWR Yas Heat machine, but tonight they're being branded as the GTWR R8G Academy machine. So yeah, huge congratulations to them. Great race and fairly civilised towards the end there, Yousuf.
Well, fairly civilized might be one way.
Is that a stretch, do you think?
I think that's a stretch. I think it's just the pressure getting onto everyone, especially when you don't have many overtaking opportunities on the circuit, especially with what we saw with the BMWs and McLarens. I'm very surprised that we didn't see any contact between the Yas Heat community car and who are they racing with again? It's already escaped my mind. West Competition Racing, there we go.
Well, thankfully they didn't, and a fairly decent job that they've done. We're just waiting on some drivers coming in. I believe we've already got who's it, Angus Fender in the waiting room. I don't know if we'll get Arthur Camera coming in as well. But Yousuf, yeah, as we said, I mean, 2 races now left to go. And I'm going to cautiously, and I very, very cautiously say that this is looking like it's done and dusted for BS+ Competition.
It is. They've looked absolutely fantastic so far this season. I think with that, can we bring Angus Fender into the interview room? We'll see whether Arthur Camera joins us shortly after, but it will be good to speak to our race winners. We're just waiting for Arthur Camera to join as well, and then we will have a
Do you know
chat
what? He's
with
obviously enjoying his champagne in the victory circle, isn't he? He's obviously, punching the air with delight and celebrating a win here on the GT Mega Challenger Cup. But, I mean, stepping in, obviously, for the team here, getting a decent performance. I think he'll be very, very happy. I mean, I've commentated on Arthur many, many times, so it's not a surprise to see him up on the top step here. But it's pretty awesome the amount of effort that BS+ Competition goes into behind the scenes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, he jumped in for Gregor Schill and he drove really well, arguably even better than Gregor Schill did. I don't think we
Are you
saw...
gonna tell Gregor that one? I'm not.
I mean, I'll tell Gregor that one because if I recall, it was Gregor who made the mistake through the NGK chicane at Nürburgring last time.
I believe you're right.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say I didn't see a foot wrong from Arthur Camera that entire race. So credit to him. Credit to BS+ Competition, who are that one little step closer to taking the championship. 2 more rounds left, and yeah, 3 wins, 2 podiums from 3 wins in 2 seconds from 5 races. it's been a perfect season from them so far, really.
Yeah, so as we said, we're still waiting on Arthur Cameron now. This is the glorious new world that we live in, where drivers have to be given permissions and
Yeah.
brought into the relevant room. I can see him up there all by himself in chat channel number 1 in the little voice room there. So we'll get our admin team to drag him kicking and screaming down to the interview waiting room. But I can see we've also got Luke Whitehead in for waiting for us as well. So we'll get all that sorted out. And again, just looking ahead to our next race, then Misano. That is. You couldn't get two more different tracks. It's wide open, plenty of space for the drivers to throw their car about left, right, and centre. But also a lot more, I would say, a lot more opportunity for collision.
Yeah. I think because the circuit does invite more overtaking, it invites more dive bombs. I think one of my favorite overtaking spots, or favorite place to see overtakes, is through that triple right-hander. You can get a really nice slingshot coming out of it if you force the other driver to go defensive, and then send one down the inside into the final right-hander. I think it's turn 14, the third to last corner on the circuit. So a lot of overtaking opportunities that will be available to drivers, just like our final race of the season at Silverstone when we head back to the UK. Mount Panorama, one of our 2 races outside of Europe. As with that, I hear the sound of someone joining us, and it is our race winner, Angus Fender. Angus, how you doing?
Good evening, guys. I'm not doing too bad, thank you.
I've got to ask, that second stint, you started that stint absolutely flying. You pulled to, what was it, an 8-second gap or something? But I want to ask what happened after that, because that gap was dropping down, I want to say, scarily. So were you just managing the pace, or were you struggling for pace?
It was scaring me too, to be honest with you. I can't really explain what happened. I think it's quite similar to what Luke had happen at Spa, where I came out the box and the car felt the pace was okay, but it didn't feel good at any point in my final stint. So we ran laps on the practice server, and the setup we decided to go with felt fantastic there, like consistent 201s on like 90 liters fuel. We're thinking this is brilliant, really good. Jump in the race, and the car felt completely different. And once the race had taken its toll, I got rear-ended a few times by a couple back markers. But once the race had taken its toll, I was just trying to go into self-preservation mode and keep out the walls. I didn't need to push too bad, I suppose. So yeah, just managed to bring it home cleanly. That's all I needed to do, and that's all I intended to do. So I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, and your teammate Arthur Camera has joined. So I'll jump over to you, Arthur. That first didn't seem to be absolutely flawless from our perspective in the commentary box. I don't think you put a foot wrong all race.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. First of all, sorry for the inconvenience. Seems like joining the interview channel was the hardest part tonight. No, I have to disagree. In fact, I repeat my mistake of not changing back into engine map 1 for the first lap, and I saw the turn coming at me on the back straight while being in map 5, and I was like, no way he's that fast. And then Angus reminded me I was still in the wrong map. So I wouldn't say I didn't put a foot wrong, but at least it didn't cost me dearly. So yeah, I mean, from that point on, it was really just tough to get the McLaren out of the slipstream range. And once it got out, I don't know. I have to agree with what Angus said. I also had some pressure problems where like I definitely put too less pressure in the tires for some reason, and I don't know, just not the confidence I expected from the car. I think overall pace was fine still, but yeah, I mean it's Bathurst. If you don't have the confidence, you can't go really fast.
This this interview is almost reminding me of that time when Kimi Raikkonen won a race and then he was complaining about how bad his car was. Because you guys, you looked on top of your game. Again, another win for you, your 4th win of the season. And I mean, if things in Misano go your way, you could be wrapping up the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with BS competition, we come here to try and win. yes, we did get the win tonight, and as brilliant as that is, it probably was made a little bit harder than it had to be, due to some reasons. But still glad we brought it to the end, and with Mazzano and Silverson to go, I think I've got Gregor back with me for that. But Arthur's jumped in and done a damn superlative job. So he's been the guy I needed tonight. Otherwise, my race would have been a lot harder. But yeah, just looking forward to continuing to try and win races, really.
Okay, well, congratulations to the pair of you. Congratulations on another race win, and we look forward to seeing you on the track in Misano, Italy.
Cheers, guys. See you then.
Yeah, I'll be watching.
Well, we'll have some fun with you then, Arthur, in the Twitch and YouTube chat for that race.
Nice.
I think we have one of the duo from Volante Racing in the interview waiting room, Jonathan Riley. Grantas Carecas is not around, it seems. So we'll bring in Mr. Riley. Jonathan, best race result of the season for you guys at Volante. I'm guessing you're pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, very pleased. We had a very good race actually. Car felt pretty good at the very first stint with Grantas. We were absolutely battling it out with Jardia, and then once the second stint came, I just was focused on not binning it because we were P2. We were, having the best results so far in our season, and yeah, thankfully we managed to bring it to the Chequered.
Now, I think with that result, you guys have jumped ahead of Jardier Community for third in the championship. West Competition Racing seem fast. Jardier Community, I mean, they've picked up a podium before in this season. You've also got the Yas Heat Community car, who have been looking strong. How much do you fancy your chances for finishing third come the end of the season?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we have next couple of tracks, I think it's not necessarily great for the McLaren. It's all right. It's just not one of those tracks we'd expect to, be absolutely dominating in the McLaren. So it's going to be very close towards the end of the season. We're just going to have to put the practice in, get some good results, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to turn over this P3.
To go back to the opening stint, where I'm guessing you were effectively engineering for Grantas Carecas, it seemed that the McLaren had a bit more straight line speed than the BMW, and you got agonizingly close to finding a way through on BS competition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I thought it was slipstream at first. I never bothered to check what the straight line speed of the BMW was in the first stint. I just, once you sort down the back straight, the slipstream's absolutely insane. You gain many Ks towards the end of the corner, but I was very confused really. I thought the BMW was quite fast on the straight. Sector 2 was great for the BMW, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that. Yeah.
One final question. That final stint, at the start, it seemed that you were struggling a little bit for pace compared to BS competition. But after about 10 minutes, you really started reeling them in. How many more laps do you think you would have needed to catch to the back of them?
Well, to be completely honest, I wouldn't even wish for 10 minutes because I had behind me a Whitehead that was catching up with me. So if I had 10 extra minutes, yes, or maybe I would catch up to the back of Fender, but to the rear of me, we'd have had a Whitehead that would probably try and overtake me. So yeah, we would have clumped up and that would not have been fun. So I'm fairly happy. Of course, if we had extra 5 minutes, yeah, that could have happened. But yeah.
Well, either way, Jonathan, congratulations on the P2. Sterling job from both of you. Fantastic qualifying as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week at Misano.
Cheers, guys.
And with that, we can bring in Mr. Luke Whitehead, who took a third for the Yas Heat by GTWR car and have continued to cement their position in second in the championship. We got to speak to them last time, last time out, I should say, at Nürburgring. So it'll be good to speak to them again once we can get him in. And Luke, welcome into the interview room. That race was, I mean, you got a podium, but I'm sure you guys would have wanted more. It seems that the pace from Volante Racing kind of came out of nowhere.
It's a bitter one, really. I mean, the pace obviously in the second stint was crazy strong. I I think we had similar to what you had at Spa with Zahir. His car was reacting exactly as mine was at Spa, bottoming out everywhere. And I mean, in practice, he was quicker than I was on quali trim, and on race trim, he was pretty much the same. So for him to struggle as much as that, there must have been something amiss, which is really unfortunate, obviously, because the pace of us two was really strong. Obviously, with my pace, I was catching the BS guys really quick. Like they didn't really have a patch on me at all. So I think I can't help but feel like if the car was right for Zahir, we'd have won that race because I don't think anyone else had a patch on us. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to swallow. I don't really understand still how the BMW is so strong on race fuel and how it's so good in the pits. Like, I mean, in the pit stops, we lost 5 seconds. I think everyone lost 5 seconds to the BMW in the pits, and no one really understands why. It's a very strange situation, but I have no doubt that gifted them the race today. I mean, don't get me wrong, and camera was really quick. Angus seemed to struggle. I think had they not gained that time, it would have been a completely different outcome. And I think, if anything, I probably could have won that. So, yeah, I mean, the good signs are there. The pace is there, but I mean, the championship's kind of slipped through our fingers, unfortunately. Now, I think with Mazzano coming up, obviously, we'll be strong. I mean, it's my favourite track, so I'd hope I'd be strong. And obviously, George, I think, will be back then. And then Silverstone. Silverstone is a decent, like a track that we know quite well, but we know the BMW is like head and shoulders above the rest there. So yeah, we just got to do what we can, really, and hope they have a bit of a nightmare. But I think looking at their form, they've got Gregor or Arthur who are really quick, and they got Angus who, is safe and just does the job that he needs to do and doesn't push the car into any risky situations. So we'll see what happens.
I want to go back to that setup thing because we were speaking to Angus just a few moments ago, and he was saying that he was essentially saying that he had the same issue that I think you were having at Spa, where the setup just didn't feel right. So I was just wondering if you could talk us through that and explain to our viewers exactly what that issue feels like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult phenomenon to explain. I mean, there's a lot of different things that kind of, well, collect to make one experience particularly awful. In this scenario and in Spa's case, the pressures were all over the place. Like in practice, we had the pressures down to a T, and in the second stint, my pressures were perfect, and we didn't change them. We didn't change the pressures whatsoever. And for Zahir's, they were like 0.7 apart, 0.7 psi apart, whereas mine they're all exactly the same, which is really weird to begin with. And then his car was bottoming out. He was the car just didn't want to cooperate at all. And at Spa, at Eau Rouge in particular, it was bottoming out to the point where I couldn't even take it flat. And when George hopped in the car, it was an easy flat. And in practice, when I was testing there as well, it was easy flat. So it's a weird situation, really hard to kind of explain because obviously everyone would feel something slightly different, but obviously the outcome is the same. The outcome is that the car feels shocking, you have no confidence, and you're just slow, unfortunately. But Zahir did a great job to drive around it. I think having been in that situation before, he did a better job than I did at Spa. So it is what it is. It happens. So yeah, gutting, really gutting, but there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah, unfortunate way for the race to go. Either way, next time out at Misano, I'm sure you'll be back at it and pushing. Well, I say pushing the BS Plus competition, but I guess you'd want it to be them pushing you with you guys at the front.
They won't be pushing me next week. That's the goal anyway. I mean, yeah, as I say, if everything goes right, we can annihilate them. But it could have been and should have been that way this week. But there's always next week.
Well, Luke, thank you very much for joining us and best of luck at Misano and Silverstone. At least I know I'm not supposed to be biased, but I want to see you guys get the better of BS Plus competition for the next couple of rounds.
Thank you, mate. I'm gonna make sure I don't let you down on that one. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you very much, Luke. And David, there we go. We got to speak to our 3 podium finishers. Final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Oh, what a race! I mean, it's so funny, isn't it, when you hear from the guys at BS Plus Competition? It's like they won the race, but they're still not happy, and you can understand why. It's a scary moment to have a big lead like that. That they worked hard for the first part. I mean, I know obviously we're hearing about how the BMW seems to gain a lot of time in the pit stop, and it did gain time in the pit stop. Let's not forget that, but realistically, that gap was going up at a rate of knots before the pit stop. That was up to about
Yeah.
3.6 seconds beforehand, anyway. So, yeah, like we'll see what happens. I personally think the championship is secure for them. I can't see them getting caught now. We've only got the 2 rounds left to go. Whether or not it's mathematically possible, all they realistically have to do is finish the races. And have a strong result. That's all they need to do. So yeah, look, brilliant night. Really happy yet again to be back here. And Yousuf, it's always a pleasure to have you on board.
Pleasure to be alongside you, David. I think I know why BS Plus Competition weren't too happy. It was they knew, if we don't dominate this race, Luke's going to be coming in the interview saying, "Oh yes, I could have absolutely destroyed them." And I loved the amount of confidence that Luke had because we saw his pace in the second stint of the race, and especially in that second half of that second stint as well. But Misano is a new day. It's a new race. It's our 7th round of our 8-round championship. And you can be sure both Yas Heat and BS Plus Competition will be at the top of their game. Maybe even Volante Racing as well in their bid to pick up their first race win of the season. Either way, from myself, Yousuf Bin-Suhayl, and David Christie alongside me, it's been a pleasure to bring you the 6th round of the GT Omega Challenge Cup here from Mount Panorama, Bathurst. A warm evening to all of you, and we'll see you in 1 week's time at Misano. Goodbye.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GT Omega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.